I'd like to call the meeting to order. And this is just a reminder, today's meeting will be live streaming on YouTube channel today. We'll have an adoption of the agenda. Councillor Richardson, second Councillor Warren, all in favor. Declaration of community interest. Seeing none. The adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting. Councillor Joyce, seconded by Councillor Warren, all in favor. Thank you. No deputations, and we'll jump right into the presentations, and we'll start off at 4.1, the paramedics services budget presentation by Chief Sarah Jones.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Budget Chair and Budget Committee, for having us. We're very pleased to be here to provide an overview of the Paramedic Service Department and discuss the proposed budget for 2026. Apologize for the mask. I'm a little under the weather, so I thought I'd save you guys the cold. We're going to be providing an overview of the key elements of our department and proposed budget. We're going to be talking about some key changes and the rationale behind those changes, as well as just generally discussing our accomplishments, priorities, and budget pressures as we move into next year. We're going to start by looking at a condensed version of our work chart, as well as making some introductions to team members that are here joining today. Paramedic service is supported by three main pillars or divisions. We have administration, which is led by our executive assistant, Renee Ford. Renee oversees a team of AAs, and they fulfill the traditional roles of administration. So things like reconciling financial activity, scheduling, reporting, and keeping us all on track. We have professional standards, and that is led by one of our two deputy chiefs, Jamie Golden. And Jamie's supported really heavily by two key people in our organization that weren't able to join us, but we have Superintendent of Staff Development, which is Brandon Ferguson, responsible for all training initiatives. Oh, is upstairs apparently, hiding in the gallery. He's safe up there. Nobody's going to ask him questions. And Superintendent of Community Paramedicine, Autumn Campbell. And last but not least, we have our operations division, and that's led by our second deputy chief, Stephen Lucas. And Stephen is also supported really heavily by our superintendent group, both our operations superintendent, as well as a new position for us, which is a superintendent of field operations. So that was added in July of this year to help oversee our growing logistics department and division. So that's John Gorniak, and I'm not too sure if he's up there as well. Okay, no. But he joined us back in July. Both deputy chiefs are going to be talking about their respective portfolios in just a few slides. Budget Committee may or may not be aware that it's our responsibility under the Ambulance Act as a municipality to operate an ambulance service. The corporation is the designated delivery agent, so we're really going to be talking about what the department is doing on the city's behalf to make sure that we meet those mandatory requirements. Our primary mission is in traditional public safety, so responding to urgent and emergent 911 calls for service in the city. For context, in 2024, we responded to just shy of 14,000 911 calls. That equates to about one call every 38 minutes, so it is quite busy. Something that's not mentioned on the slide, but certainly notable, is our growing community paramedic department or division. That is a group of 8 full-time community paramedics. They're overseen by a superintendent, and they're really supporting some of the most vulnerable people in our community. So they run about 22 clinics a month for outreach, and they're also supporting about 750 clients in the community. Some are on waiting lists for long-term care or soon to be waiting lists for long-term care, but the goal of that program is to help people age safely and independently at home for as long as possible. And I'm really proud, we're all very proud of that program. At full complement, we have 141 staff. We have 8 ambulances on days And we just recently increased from 5 ambulances on nights to 6. That addition happened again back in July, and that's really helped to distribute the workload over the nighttime hours. We have 5 stations and 2 posts. Our stations are in Lindsay, Fenelon, Bobcaygeon, Pontypool, and Oakwood, which is our community paramedic headquarters. And we have posts on the west end of Lindsay off of McLaughlin Road and Coboconk. The province of Ontario funds about 50% of our operating budget and 100% of all community paramedic and dedicated offload nurse programming. I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Chief Lucas and then Deputy Chief Golden just to talk about their respective portfolios.
Hello, and I'll just go over kind of my bullet points here and how it relates to my role in operations. So we start off, we manage the deployment plan, which we meet with the other 3 counties, that's Haliburton, Northumberland, as well as Peterborough, that we work with the Ministry of Health and our dispatch center to have kind of the best response times we can do with this document. And it does change due to like new implementation of the MPDS system. We had to make a lot of changes to align with that, as well as operational needs change pretty much every meeting, so you're always tweaking that document, and it seems to work well. The next thing is the procurement of kind of consumables, equipment, ambulances. And as you are aware, we were struggling getting ambulances, and thanks to the Early Start program, we received 5 this year and we're receiving 9 next year. So that's helping us out with our maintenance schedule and just reliability. So we're really pleased with that. I also kind of oversee the Ministry of Health requirements and vehicle standards, equipment standards, and with the help of Superintendent John Gorniak and our logistics lead, Kevin Williams, as a group, we manage that and make sure we're meeting those regulations. Kind of an example is the units have to go in every 9,000 kilometers for an inspection and any preventive maintenance. As far as equipment, we got to make sure that the auction is being calibrated to the proper flow rates. So that's kind of one other thing that we do, and that does get reviewed at our service review, which happens usually every 3 years. And there's random audits as well, so we stay on top of that. Labor relations, another component of my role, and this year we were able to successfully get a ratified contract, which was a big win. I think it was 4 or 5 days of negotiations, and we work with the union and we have a good relationship with them. We also have labor management meetings every 3 to 4 months to try to kind of nip things in the bud and have that conversation, and it works well. I'm also one of many that are involved in recruitment. We're constantly recruiting new part-time. It's a very competitive market these days. So we do generally a fall and a spring recruit, as well as there's movement within our department for superintendents. So I have to kind of be backfilling sometimes or recruiting in those positions. And I also kind of look after a group of 4 full-time operational superintendents and 7 part-time, and they're an excellent group, and they're kind of boots on the ground, kind of that liaison between the frontline staff and what they need. And they also take on personal kind of portfolios like the PAD program, stretcher maintenance. They do medication reconciliation and staff engagement committees. So they're a busy bunch, and they support our staff in a great way. So that's kind of just a quick overview of the operations side.
Okay, now I'm going to speak to the Professional Standards Division. Like Deputy Lucas mentioned, every 3 years the Ministry of Health performs an ambulance service review. So lucky me, I'm the one that has to basically perpetually prepare and make sure that our ambulance service is complying with all of the standards and regulations, and it's something that we take a lot of pride in. I'm also responsible for the education program that we provide to our paramedics. My superintendent, Brandon Ferguson, that's upstairs there, he's the one that gets to deliver the information, but we work collaboratively together to make sure that we're involved in the development and the actual delivery of all of the education to our paramedics. And we're also very diligent with our onboarding process, which improves every year. Perpetually, I'm involved in a call review, so every call that our paramedics perform out there, we're always watching and making sure that they're compliant with the patient care directives. And I'm also usually involved with providing some sort of data analysis of what we're actually doing out in the road. So once MPDS became live, looking at what color codes are being deployed and how we are responding back to the hospital is a very important feedback for not only our chief, but also for the public and also for our dispatch center. I'm involved in all the investigations that the service performs, whether we're dealing with patient care issues, we're dealing with service complaints, and I'd also like to add all of the positive attributes that the service actually is involved with. And finally, I oversee the community paramedic program, the dedicated offload nurse program, and any type of new models of care that we develop, things like the palliative care program and the Fit to Sit program that we share with the Ross Memorial.
Thank you for that. So we're going to spend some time discussing the financial summary of the department, and this slide looks at a high-level overview. So this rolls all of our business units, all of the financial activity into one slide. It looks at our 911 programming as well as any community paramedic dedicated offload nurse program. So we can start by looking at the revenue and specifically the grants. I do want to make a note that the user fees, license, and fines is actually part of our grant revenue. So moving forward, that's actually going to be included in grants, but just to give you an idea, that is part of our community paramedic funding. So we can look at the total revenue, and for 2026, we're expecting to receive about $9.6 million from the province. And the vast majority of that is land ambulance service grant. The land ambulance service grant is funded on a 50-50 basis with the province, but it always lags 1 year behind. And that's important to note when we look at budget pressures and sources of variance a little later on. Our salaries, wages, and benefits have increased. There's several reasons for that. Again, we'll talk about that more when we get to budget pressures, but just briefly, we have a wage adjustment related to our collective agreement. As our staffing numbers increase, so does our overtime. Our WSIB related expenses have increased, and we've requested 2 new positions for next year. So that's all rolled up into that increase that we'll talk about more in a little bit. Our wages make up 80% of our total budget. Materials, training, and services is status quo from 2025 to 2026. And we've actually done some work and refinements in the areas of contracted services and transfers to external clients. So we're actually showing a decrease or a favorable position there. And we have an increase of 6% to interfunctional adjustments. So the next few slides is actually going to break down that high-level overview. It's going to flesh out our individual business units so you can see it a little bit more at a granular level. So the first is administration and operating services. This is our traditional 911 operations. It makes up the vast majority of our expenses and the vast majority of our grant. So we're expecting to receive about $7 million in 2026 for the land ambulance service grant. And a pretty similar theme in the remaining lines. So wages in this area make up about 83% of our budget and have increased for all of those reasons that I mentioned previous. Some budget improvements in certain areas, very similar for contracted services, almost status quo there. And similar increase to interfunctional adjustments in administration and operating services. This is our community paramedic business unit. It is 100% funded by the province. We're expecting to receive about $2.4 million in 2026. You can see that user fees, license, and fines as part of the revenue stream for community paramedicine. The vast majority of this budget is also wages. What looks to be a variance in this area, this was a new program not that many years ago. We started in about 2019. So what looks to be, we made a lot of budget assumptions and estimations early on. We basically had to create a budget from scratch. And as the years go on, we make some refinements and just improve our accuracy year over year. So not necessarily variance, but moving some money around and just making our overall budget more accurate and reflective. Because this program is 100% funded, it has no net effect to the tax-supported component of our budget. And this is our third and final business unit. This is the dedicated offload nurse program. It is also 100% funded. This is where there is a dedicated nurse at the Ross Memorial Hospital that assists the paramedics coming in with offload when a bed isn't immediately available. The intention is to reduce the amount of time that paramedics are spending in hospital, and it's doing that greatly. Over the last 12 months, it saved about 1,150 hours, so 1,150 hours of idle time that our paramedics would have been spending on offload delay. And we know that our average unit hour cost is around $246, so that equates to $283,000 worth of lost time recovery. Certainly a very good return on investment, and we're very pleased to see it continue. I'm going to shift over into accomplishments and priorities from the financial summary. This isn't an exhaustive list, but things that stood out for us as big accomplishments so far in 2025. I've mentioned it, but with council support, we were able to hire and onboard 4 full-time paramedics in July. That allowed us to add an ambulance on night shift in Lindsay. It certainly helped to manage that work and the volume over the nighttime hours, and it's been a very well-timed addition to our service. Our team has backfilled 25 part-time vacancies for our part-time paramedics over the year, and we hired 1 superintendent of field operations in July to support the growing logistics division. And logistics is, fleet, equipment, and supplies, and as the service grows, those needs grow as well. An update on the paramedic headquarters project. We have finalized the land agreement with Trillium Lakelands District School Board, so that has been complete. We're just in the process now of retaining a construction management firm that CM, or construction manager, will be responsible for keeping the project on time and on budget. It is anticipated that they will be on board by the middle of October, and we're ready to hit the ground running when they come on board. We've substantially completed the design, and I think already mentioned in Director Bukaboom's presentation, the fiber optic connectivity to that site was complete this year as well. We've secured a few key funding enhancements. Some are more announcements than enhancements, and I'll go over those. $860,000, $858,399 for additional land ambulance service grant. That's not new money. That was a top-up to make the provincial share 50%, and I'll explain a little bit more on the last slide, so hopefully you understand that a little bit better. You may have seen an announcement last month that community paramedic programs will be permanently funded, and that is really great news. A long anticipated announcement. Community paramedic programs across the province are showing really immeasurable value in the circle of care and how they can connect patients with resources that need it the most, and we're very pleased to hear that. We're still waiting to hear what the funding allotment will be in Kawartha Lakes, so stay tuned on that. But the permanency of the program is great news. Thanks to a lot of the work that Deputy Chief Golden is doing around metrics in the dedicated offload nurse program, that program is continuing this year, and we received $195,000 for that. Deputy Chief Lucas mentioned that we successfully renewed the collective agreement with OPSU Local 371, and we were able to launch the Medical Priority Dispatch System, or MPDS. So You may recall Dr. Feldman and myself, we did a presentation back in the spring about the modernization of dispatch and really the importance of making sure calls are prioritized and triaged coming into the call center. And just so we put that into context, prior to MPDS, about 70% of our calls were dispatched as lights and sirens. And after MPDS, it's about 47%, just with more accurate triaging, more questions to the call taker. That's important to note because once a crew is assigned as a lights and sirens response, they can't defer and divert to something that's a bigger emergency. So we want to be making sure that the calls are appropriately prioritized, but also that the sickest patients get the most timely response. And that program is helping us do that. Something that's not mentioned on here, but certainly notable, is the ice storm response. I think the community paramedics played a really great role in that. Very non-traditional and thinking outside the box. So I think it taught us to, use all of our resources in ways that we didn't really think of initially, and helping to bring care and connection to people that were off grid and offline was really key in those days, especially early on. Looking at 2026 and ahead, certainly all eyes, all of our focus, all of our efforts are moving the headquarters and fleet center project forward. We are really growing, and we're looking very much forward to occupying a place that is suitable for housing us. We'll receive and deploy 9 ambulances through the Early Start program. Deputy Chief Lucas already commented on that, but largely due to work with finance and council support, we're able to put ambulances in the queue faster so that we replace them at the end of life cycle rather than extending them well beyond life cycle. So that's good news for our department. And it's our goal and hope to expand the professional standards division by adding a person that would be dedicated to developing a comprehensive wellness strategy. And I'll talk about that in the last slide. But certainly we're feeling pressure in that area. So there's 2 main areas that cause pressures to our budget, and most of them can be categorized as an operating pressure or a system pressure. I think each year we bring forward hopefully a pretty comprehensive report on our key performance indicators, how the service is running, what's going well, what needs some improvement. And I think we're all doing a very good job at paying attention to those pressures that are growth related and making sure that we're adding resources and making changes, making decisions either before we need it or when we need it, so that we're mitigating those things as much as we can. And I think we're doing a pretty good job there. So what's landing in front of you in terms of budget changes is more on the operating side of things. And the first, there's 2 of them mainly. The first is workforce-driven pressures. So that's the wage adjustment related to the collective agreement. There is a paramedic shortage across Ontario. It's not new to our service. It's not new to any service across Ontario, but we want to be making sure that we're doing our best efforts to make sure that Kawartha Lakes is a place that people want to work and want to stay working here. And part of that is in competitive wages. So the new collective agreement made some adjustments for that. I mentioned previously that our WSIB costs are increasing, and as our staffing complement increases, so does our amount of overtime. The one thing that isn't on this slide is our 2 new positions. So very briefly, we're requesting a logistics technician, and currently there's 1 person in that role, and they support fleet, equipment, supplies, making sure all the bases are stocked, and doing all of our ordering in the background, all of our fleet maintenance. There's so many things that they're doing, but it is more work than 1 person can do. So we're requesting an addition there. And the other one is that position or dedicated position to help with overall staff wellness. So we know that the physical, psychological health of our staff is incredibly important. and so is retention. So we really need to be increasing some capacity and doing a better job in the area of health and safety, return to work, leave of absences, WSIB mitigation, and just bringing forward more of a comprehensive strategy to make sure that we are taking care of our staff and making sure that we're supporting them in terms of all things wellness. The other area or operating pressure that you're seeing is the right sizing of the grant. So I mentioned the Land Ambulance Service Grant is based on 50% of the previous year's council-approved budget. So for 2026, the province will initially give us 50% of whatever council approved in 2025. That's what we get initially. The province then does an in-year reconciliation to top up their share. So in the middle of the year, they look at the previous. So in 2025, we received a top-up for 2024, and that was the top-up between council-approved budget and actual expenses. So traditionally in the past, we've budgeted 50% of current year expenses, but because there's a lag on the funding, we don't actually receive the money in year, and then we're in a negative position or a deficit before we start, and it's just with the amount of grant, it's impossible to make it up anywhere else. So we worked with finance moving forward into 2026 to right-size that budget and have the grant budgeted as a more reflective value so that it puts us in a better position for the year. Hopefully I explained that okay and didn't muddy the waters worse, but that ends my formal presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions about that, the grant, or anything that was discussed.
Councilor Warren.
Through you, Mr. Chair. And thanks for this, Sarah. Yeah, we've come a long way since funeral parlors used to run the ambulances. Isn't that something? I see, I wasn't around then, but it's just amazing how things have expanded. It's just incredible. I have a couple questions. The PAD program, and I had a part to play in that many years ago. I'm just wondering how that expanded and how that's funded. Does the community help fund that? Do we train people? Thank you.
Yes, Superintendent Greg Salawanchuk kind of oversees that program, and I think we at last count it was like 78 city-owned pads within the city, whether they're arenas, libraries, and things like that. So we as a city own those assets, and then we have a third party that does routine checks on those. We're always, if there's a building within the city that needs a pad, we reach out to us, and I think we have the funding to support that and continue to grow that program. There's also private companies but we don't fund those privates. And the Mikey network, I think it's kind of faded off now. They're not as intense as they used to be for supplying those.
Do we get any grants for that?
No grants, no.
Okay, thank you. How many advanced paramedics do we have in the corporation?
So through you to the chair, we aim for 50% of our full-time complement is trained to the advanced care level. So I think we are hovering 26, is that the number? Give or take. We have a hard time maintaining the 50%, so, one person retires or, they move to another service and we drop below that 50%, but we try very hard to maintain the 50% complement to our full-time staff for ACPs.
The ambulance service paramedics don't do transfers at all anymore, I hope.
So through the chair, it's minimal. We have an agreement with Community Care for non-urgent transportation services, and we provide some funding to them for that purpose. It results in great value for us because if they weren't doing it, it would put pressure back on the paramedic service. The patients have to be moved to their appointments from home to hospital, hospital to home. So they assist greatly with that. I wouldn't say we don't do any. but it's quite minimal and fairly reserved to the hours that community care isn't working or holidays, things like that, when the hospital is a little bit more restricted in moving those patients.
Just one more through you. The extra staff member for a wellness staff person, I'm just wondering if that position couldn't be shared throughout the corporation, especially also with fire services. Seems like something that, you know, would be helpful everywhere.
Yeah. Through the chair, there is some corporate services that are, their work is tailored to that, whether it is return to work, benefits, oversight, and some wellness initiative. We know that emergency services needs are a little bit more specific or tailored to that industry, so that weighs into it a little bit. But initially, Superintendent Ferguson, that's upstairs, his portfolio was shared between wellness and training and development. And it's constantly a balancing act of priorities. You know, he'll shift into training season and, you know, that will be his focus. But unfortunately, there's all these people that are on leave of absences or that are struggling in general, and we're not doing anything really proactive to deal or address with wellness initiatives in general in our service. We try to provide some training opportunities, but we know with escalating WSIB costs, we need to be doing better in the background to make sure we're doing some proactive work, because that is an unmanageable strategy, what we're doing now. Yep.
Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Thanks very much for the presentation, and we certainly can see it's very lean, and recognizing that the pressures are, you know, generally around the workforce. Where's this echoing? Anyways, my question too was regarding that proactive positioning when it comes to that well-being officer, and how in the long run it's going to save perhaps that, you know, money when it comes to claims, but also helping workforce get back to work at a quicker rate. So then you're going to have maybe some reduced pressures when it comes to staffing. And with that logistics technician, with you guys moving to the bigger footprint, is that going to be more like a warehouse operations type of position where they can, you know, just in time logistics and help out in that capacity as well? Because again, that would probably save money in the long run when it comes to those operating.
So through the chair, the logistics division, or the logistics technician, I'll deal with first. So to put things into perspective, we have one person doing that job, and if you look at other services, they would have 4, 5, 6 people, and that's a comparable structure. Not even if you get into Peel region, they'll have 40. How many? 70, sorry, not 40, 70, doing the job. So it's a big task. The more vehicles, the more equipment, the more stock you have. There's simply more demand to make sure that everything is maintained and where it should be, to make sure that people have the supply, the stock, and functional fleet that they need to do their job well. So it will actually be the plan to build that division up. I think at full complement, I think we had 3 logistics technicians. So we're working our way to try to get there, to make sure that we're not burning out any one individual with too much work that they essentially can't keep up with. It is a centralized hub, so hopefully they'll do less running between stations. Now, if they have to pick up stock, they're having to head to Cameron or, you know, wherever they're having to head, and then go around and basically touch every station, which is quite arduous. So there will be some efficiencies, but there's still going to be workforce requirements that we're going to need to do the physical work. In terms of the wellness strategy, there is a lot of work happening provincial in terms of advocacy about how we can improve mental health supports for all emergency personnel, not just paramedics. But it takes a champion and somebody dedicated at those services in those positions to make sure that they're moving those initiatives forward. So things like training and education, how are we going to touch the paramedics or get to them, have conversations with them on a regular basis, because the very nature of our work, it makes it very, very difficult. So I think we need to be doing a lot more than what we're doing right now. To put things into perspective, our WSIB related costs related to leave of absence was about $440,000 last year, and is projected to be $550,000 next year. The longer that people are off, the harder it is for them to get back to work. And unfortunately, do we have time to connect with those individuals, keep contact with them, and keep them connected to our community to make sure that they want to come back and that they're feeling supported in doing so? And I would say right now, no, we're just not able to do that to the full capacity that we potentially could.
Thank you, and I do appreciate that, because it does fundamentally, expose that gap and where we need to bridge that gap, and obviously having a position to do that is going to be more beneficial in the long run. Your 9 ambulances early start program, do you have an update on our outstanding backlog on new ambulances?
Yes, so we received 5 this year, and then the 9 next year will be right on schedule and back where we want to be. So that's a good news. Yeah.
That's great news.
So want me to repeat that? Yeah. So we got 5 this year, and we have 9 coming next year. So that's our whole entire fleet replaced. So the early start has really helped us with that, because we would have been waiting probably another 2 years if we'd not gone through that process. Yeah.
Any more questions? Councillor Joyce.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Councillor Warren, Councillor Richardson asked a few of my questions. This is great. It saves me. Actually, just a brand new one here. It's great that we have the new ambulances. What's the life cycle of these?
We typically keep them for 5 years, but they got extended with this kind of lapse for up to 7, and getting up to into 400,000 plus kilometers, which was costing a lot in maintenance and things.
A little clearer in the mic here. I'm having trouble hearing. Just the years of the life cycle, not the cost.
5.
But they
I
extended.
just want to throw it out there that 5 years from now we got to buy 9 more. If we can try to stagger that out, so we're buying, I don't know, 2 every year kind of thing, would be a lot better on our budget pressures.
Yes, the reason we went with 9 was we wanted to get them all caught up, and we wouldn't have had that if we'd done it like 3 a year or so. But yeah, ideally, I think, we could divide it into the program.
My comment is going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you expand on the paramedic contract? We talked about this in another meeting. I can't remember that the collective bargaining. What's the years of that? When does that come to an end?
Through the chair, it's a 3-year contract. So it expired, so it would be 27, the end of 27.
Okay, thank you. And I think this is my last question. The superintendents, you say that we have 7 superintendents. If we can just flesh that out, explain their role a little bit better to me, what they do and their role with the service.
Sure, through the chair. So we have 4 operational superintendents, full-time, and 7 part-time. And the 7 part-time will replace the 4 full-time when they're off on vacation and those sorts of things. That group works under the Deputy Chief of Operations and oversees, they're like a supervisor on the road that day. So they supervise deployment, the management of calls, the movement of patients, dispatch, where everybody is at any point of time, meal breaks, end of shift, and any concerns that they would have throughout the day. So they're essentially a supervisor. And then we have administrative superintendents that are off of the road and are doing program management work. So we have our superintendent of staff development, which is Brandon Ferguson. So he would do all things training, education, delivery, facilitation. We have our superintendent of community paramedicine that oversees the community paramedic program and the full-time personnel that are in that program. And we have our superintendent of field operations that we've added this year, and they oversee our logistics division. So equipment, fleet, supplies. We're asking for this additional superintendent, so that would be 4 administrative superintendents to add the proactive, comprehensive wellness strategy for our team.
Thank you for that. Especially in there, we have the on-the-road superintendents. They'll be on at night as well.
Through the chair, yes. Yeah, those are, the operational superintendent group works 24/7.
Okay, thank you. No, that's very good, because when you said seven superintendents and we have 8 ambulances on the road per day, it made it look like we have 1 superintendent for every 2 paramedics. So thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, that's not the case. We have 1 superintendent will be on 24/7. When the full-time member is not working, we have a part-time group that will backfill them.
Nope, thank you. That's it.
Any other questions? Councilor Warren.
That just made me think of a question. So do we have roaming superintendents, like, let's say we're backed up, that can go to a call?
Through the chair, our superintendents, their intention isn't to proactively respond to calls. They do, to provide support. Their purpose and the goal of them is to make sure that they're supervising and managing the group of staff that are on and any issues that they may have. With that, a lot of times they get pulled into, if there's a larger call or they need an extra set of hands, that supervisor goes to provide support wherever they're needed in the community. But there's 1 of them, so it depends on where the call is.
And what do we do with the old ambulances?
So any assets, vehicles, SUVs as well, we put it on Gov's deal and get the highest bidder. It takes that. Yeah.
Okay, no more questions? Could I have a motion to receive the paramedic service budget presentation? Councilor Richardson, second by Councilor Warren. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you for your presentation today, and thank you for everyone to come today to present that. Thanks and good job. We'll take 5 minutes just so we can get the next group up here to speak. Thank you. Everyone, I'd like to call the meeting back to order, and 4.2 is the fire service budget presentation by Chief Terry Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and councilors, for giving us the opportunity to present our operating budget overview. Before I start, I would actually like to introduce my management staff. I'm going to start with, in the middle, Deputy Chief Jeff Bignell. He's in charge of our full-time and volunteer operations, also fire prevention, and also our building and maintenance. We have Deputy Chief Sean Moore. He's in charge of training, fleet, health and safety, and communications. And without saying, we have our pit boss, Valerie Knights, pretty much in charge of everything. Of course, Val has been with the fire service since amalgamation. She worked for the city, so she's been with us for 25 years. So she's the one that keeps us in line. So today we're going to view our organizational chart, department overview, division overviews, our variances, accomplishments and priorities, our 2025 budget pressures, and our new position summary. So on our operational chart, we start with administration. The Fire Service Administration Division provides the overall leadership, direction, and planning for fire services, ensuring department compliance to the Fire Protection and Prevention Act and the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. Our Fire Prevention Division reduces fire loss, injuries, and deaths by utilizing the fire prevention and public education and code and standards enforcement. The Emergency Management Program ensures that the municipality is meeting the essential level of the provincially mandated requirements of the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. Our fire support services are responsible for the mitigation of all emergency and non-emergency responses involving risk to life and property in the city of Kawartha Lakes. And our training division responsible for the development and implementation of firefighter training programs. Our fire service overview, we have 19 fire stations, 1 EVT shop, we have 19 pumpers, a mini pumper, 21 tankers, 2 rescue trucks, aerial ladder, 9 marine units, 7 off-road vehicles, a rehab unit, and an airlight unit. We're running with approximately about 360 volunteers at the moment, 21 full-time suppression, 2 in training, 3 in fire prevention, and Val has 3 AAs working out of her office. You can see we responded to 2,339 calls to the 1st of September. That's a 36% increase in calls from the previous year to the same date. Why add the responding to the 539 assist calls is that's when we have to call out more than one station. So we have the 239 incidents, but there's 539 times that we've had to call other departments, either for structured fires or just to assist them, whatever it may be. Out of that 36% increase, 15% of those were actually fire calls. Surprisingly enough, we were anticipating that we were going to see our medical calls go down with the new dispatching system, but actually our medical calls increased 10%. So that didn't take place. Now we'll also, we can add the ice storm. We've had some major events that certainly increased our numbers. The ice storm probably, I'm going to say roughly maybe 160 calls were added just in that ice storm alone over about a 3-day period. The wildland fires did increase our calls a little, but not as much as you might anticipate because we were just responding back to the same location. So. Our fire service financial summary. Unfortunately, unlike the paramedics, you can see our revenue isn't quite as high as you're well aware that The fire service totally is municipal funded, so there are very little changes in our revenue. Any grants that we do get, pretty much operating grants, and though it does save us money, it's really not something that we can really put into our budget because we don't know when they're coming, if we're going to get them, and that money is already accounted for when we do the grant of what we're buying. And expenses, typical increase, salary, wages, and benefits always seems to be the big one, just meeting our contract obligations. We also did have a WSIB increase in there also. Our materials, our training and service, you see we did take a little cut on that. Basically, it was transferred to IT. That was mainly our telecommunications. So they took over the cell phones, landlines, any of that monthly fees. So that basically came out of our budget. Contracted fees, I'm going to leave to the next slide, along with our interfunctional adjustments. So everything else was pretty much on par. So when it comes to our contracted services, you see 77% increase, roughly $490,000. A lot of that was just to right size our budget. We were $350,000 roughly over in snow plowing costs last year. So that's just kind of to right size our budget to make it look ideally where it should be. There was some other costs in there, our vehicle maintenance certainly, and our buildings costs have gone up a little. The interfunctional adjustments, we took basically that moved to a corporate item. You'll have to ask Mrs. Bukaboom if you want any more questions on that when we get to the end of the day. But you can see that was roughly $2 million was coming out that we had in there, was transferred to our fleet fund. There's $30,000 short that basically was moved to cover our increase in our dispatching costs. Our accomplishments and priorities. Launch of our ICO records this year is basically about a 2-year project, but we used to have Firehouse, which was no longer being used, so we had to move to a different records management software. We just got that, basically went live in July 1st. We're still working as far as our calls, implements and stuff. We're still implementing our training division and stuff to be able to use it for everything we can out of that program. We did receive some grant funding though through the Fire Marshal Office to the tune of about $180,000. That went into continue to improve on our cancer protection program. That allowed us to put extractors, wash machines in all our stations, and actually actually got some dryers and stuff too to be able to put our gear back into service quicker. There is another grant. Hopefully we'll get lucky. It was closed today, so we've already applied that, so maybe we'll get lucky enough and be able to continue with that program. We will regardless, but it'll help if we get some money. Another thing, this firefighter recognition program, it's been kind of something that's really I've wanted to move forward with for the last few years. We've always kind of done a very informal recognition program for our firefighters. We show up, we give them their medals or their years of service envelopes from the city or whatever. Like I said, it's very informal, and we really want to improve that to recognize. Hopefully it'll help maintaining our firefighters to give them a lot more recognition. A few of those things that we've added was pride and ownership within the stations. We went around to the stations, whoever, kept the station the cleanest and the trucks the cleanest and whatever. So another one was the duty to act. There were, if we do happen to have a heroic event that one of our firefighters or crews could, receive an award for. The other one, most dedicated, is kind of like the MVP of the departments. Just, with leadership and attended the calls and just was that person that outstood in that hall. We also added in a top attendance. The 2 firefighters in each station received a plaque regards to their attended the most calls and training in that year. That's going to be held on November 13th, and you're all going to be invited, so keep that in mind. The invites will be going out shortly. Our priorities in 2026 are fire station rebuilds and renovations. Fenland, we're going to be demolishing the old Quonset huts there. That's pretty much going to fall down regardless. We'll add an addition on that should be attached to the fire hall to it'll serve a lot of more purposes than just what it is now. Really, it's just a shed now, but it'll also help us with our cancer prevention program because we'll be able to move their gear into a separate area, which is one of the biggest things that is recommended, that it's not just sitting in the hall, it's in its own contained area. We have the Norland, which is actually going to be a new build. We'll be dealing with the finding the property, and our design will take place this year. Kinmount and Emily are just basically some additions. Anybody's been in those stations, they're pretty tight in there, and this will allow us to upgrade their washrooms and their training rooms. The station to complete, we've had a program for the last few years, was complete building condition assessments on our fire stations, and we try to do 5 a year, and that'll be able to update and prioritize the fire station 10-year capital plan. We're also looking to do this year a station location study and update our master fire plan, just due to the increase in our population and our needs and stuff, that we'd really like to get some expert advice of where our new station's going to go. Particularly, we're looking to build a new headquarters in 2029, but we'd like to get some information just to ideally see which side of town or what's the best location. I'm going to turn the next slide over to Deputy Chief Moore.
Thanks, Chief. I'll be covering off our training accomplishments and priorities for 2026, starting off with our continued work towards firefighter certification. We're mandated under a regulation to complete certification for all of our active duty firefighters. The deadlines for that are coming up July 1st, 2026 and July 1st, 2028. This year we were able to complete 7 AS&E certification exams, which basically just means being able to host certification in-house so our folks don't have to travel as far. We were able to contract the use of the Fire Marshal's Mobile Live Fire Training Unit. So in partnership with the Fire Marshal's office, there's no cost for the unit itself. We were just able to utilize wages. And we had a very successful training evolution with that, being able to take 75 firefighters through, and that coincided over 4 days, which happened to coincide with the 2 very large wildfires that were occurring. So a lot of logistical management, but good success by our teams on that. And 2 volunteer recruit classes. We try and, up to this point, have held a spring and a fall recruit class. Both went very well. We were able to do 30 new hires and 22 new hires. And get them certified to their, what we would call their sort of basic firefighter certification level 1. As we look to 2026, continued work on the mandatory certification requirements is our top priority. This is something that, based on our extensive geography and number of stations and large personnel, is a key focus that we hope to continue to work towards the 2 July deadlines that I just mentioned. Our division does consist of 1 full-time training officer and 1 training instructor, so we are hampered by instructor to student ratios. We look to revamp our recruit program to fully align with basic firefighter certification. So once again, tying back to mandatory certification, the goal there is Next year's recruit course will be one recruit course, consolidating certification for all basic firefighting skills required. And we expect, obviously, it's going to take a lot longer to get through that certification course time, but that's what our goal will be, to consolidate. As we look to develop and expand our in-house course offerings, basically what we're looking to do there is, as we move towards the 2028 date, there's technical disciplines and non-technical disciplines. So we will require new courses that we haven't currently offered at City of Kawartha Lakes in-house for certification, and being able to submit that to the fire marshal for approval, and then have the required staff to be able to teach that. And lastly, our training for technical disciplines and non-technical, specifically ice and surface water. Just an expansion of the previous point. We look to run more in-house testing and being able to expand our in-house course offerings. One of our major challenges, obviously, having 360 plus volunteer firefighters, and the required time for all of these courses is being able to help them find the time to not have to leave their full-time employment somewhere or take vacation time to then attend training courses. So we're trying to maximize what we can in partnership with the Ontario Fire College and Ontario Fire Marshal's Office, which also will tie into the importance, as the Chief will allude to later, our higher requests for training instructors to try and expand our current acumen. Not an exhaustive list, but it does kind of outline the importance of what we're trying to do, and it's certainly a daunting task for the training division at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Bignell now.
Good afternoon, committee. I have the opportunity to discuss the accomplishment and priorities of the Fire Prevention Division. So our Fire Prevention Division consists of one fire prevention officer, 2 inspectors, and a public educator. In addition to completing public education and fire code inspections, our team completes application reviews under various licensing requirements, as well as plans examination for fire safety systems in new construction, as well as planning application reviews. Our team focused predominantly on proactive inspections in multi-residential buildings through the community, ensuring building life safety systems, fire separations, exiting, fire safety planning, and record keeping was in conformance with the Ontario Fire Code. We know within our community we have buildings that have been converted to multi-dwellings, rooming houses, student accommodation, apartments, and condo buildings that all pose unique fire and life safety requirements and needs to ensure residents and responding firefighters remain safe during an emergency. Staying on the topic of residential occupancies, our division completed a substantial overhaul on our proactive initiative by developing an Alarm for Life program. This program will see volunteer and career firefighters, as well as fire prevention staff, drill down on smoke and carbon monoxide alarm compliance throughout the city. Non-compliance with smoke alarm laws today are still a major factor in fatal and injury-related fires in the province of Ontario. The goal of this program is to promote compliance through education and smoke and carbon monoxide alarm checks. Earlier this year, Kawartha Lakes Fire Rescue Service was one of 12 Southern Ontario fire departments to participate in the first ever mentorship program focusing on fire prevention initiatives with Northern First Nations. During the months of February and March of this year, we hosted a member of the Nemaska First Nation located in northern Quebec. Renee from the First Nations worked with our team, learning hands-on experience in fire code inspections and public education initiatives. In the spring of this year, Kawartha Lakes Fire Service received a $500 Fire Smart Community Preparedness Grant to go towards a community event focusing on Fire Smart programming. Earlier this month, this grant was used to host a joint Fire Smart workshop at the Burnt River Fire Hall, where staff, along with the Ministry of Natural Resources staff, interacted with the community promoting this program. Another grant item that is not mentioned on the slide deck, as it is hot off the press, is that our department has once again been selected as a recipient of the Safe Community Project Zero campaign. Kawartha Lakes Fire is receiving 324 free combination smoke and CO alarms at a value of almost $32,000. This program is in conjunction with Enbridge Gas and the Fire Marshal's Public Fire Safety Council. In 2026, our prevention team will focus On proactive inspections in multi-residential buildings with the goal of educating the property owners and tenants on the importance of fire safety and reducing fire loss through these proactive inspections. Another priority our team is looking forward to implementing is the Fire Smart program through the City of Kawartha Lakes. The Fire Smart program is a national program promoting protecting of homes, properties, and communities from wildfire. We all have seen these types of fires on the daily news circuits for the last couple of years across Canada, and unfortunately, our city has been exposed to these types of emergencies. As we transition to working towards a fire smart community, we are going to need to look at our current practices to ensure that they align with the future proactive programs of Fire Smart. We also need to ensure that our open air burning bylaw aligns with the Ministry of Natural Resources. Our Alarm for Life program will further expand in 2026, encompassing more of our stations and staff working with our communities, promoting smoke and carbon monoxide alarm compliance. And finally, to build off on our elementary school programming, we are working towards expanding our presence with teaching and interacting with our younger generation on the importance of fire and life safety initiatives.
Thank you. Well, we just on the fire prevention, just want to mention we were successful, and Jeff can correct me if I'm wrong, of our fire prevention team had $180,000 in fines. Is that correct number?
$275,000 in fire code fines.
So, you know, they're out there, and yeah, unfortunately, we don't get any of that money, but I'm just saying it's showing they're out there doing what they need to be doing. So, also, I believe, Jeff, the next slide is yours. Thank you.
All right, I get you to just switch that deck. Thanks, Chief. So I will be speaking to the accomplishments and priorities for the Fire Suppression Division. So our Suppression Division consists currently of 381 frontline firefighting staff, which includes full-time and volunteer staff operating out of our 19 fire halls. In 2025, we have filled the existing position of platoon chief and are finalizing the replacement of an existing full-time firefighter position out of the Station 1 Lindsay. We have 2 recruitment courses for new volunteer firefighters being completed throughout the city, which Deputy Moore had spoke earlier on to in the training slide. We have we have officially filled our new district fire chief position to assist in the overall effectiveness, operation, and leadership of our fire service. A major component to this position will be to assist and help manage fire incidents, as well as ensure the overall readiness of our department. Additional items of mention for 2025 that are not on the slide deck is recently we had 40 of our staff conduct training with Ministry of Natural Resources on wildland fire techniques in September. We have also completed 3 promotions to volunteer firefighters to the rank of station coordinator. And earlier this year, a course on firefighter survival was completed for 20 of our staff. In 2026, we are looking to complete a specialized training in elevator and high-rise residential buildings to specifically hone on firefighting techniques to those fire stations responding to these types of complex and vertical style buildings. These disciplines require specialized knowledge for occupant safety and firefighter safety. Population density can pose significant challenges for firefighting operations in buildings with large occupant loads, such as apartment buildings, condo buildings, retirement complexes, and long-term care facilities. With the increase of wildland fires in the city this past summer, we are also focusing on providing our captains with incident command strategies and techniques for wildland fires training with the Ministry of Natural Resources. And finally, another priority is to continue to work towards the modernization of our communications and information technology for our frontline firefighters, enhancing mapping, water source mapping, pagers, and radio enhancements.
Thank you. So our 2026 budget pressures, as you certainly heard, firefighter certification and training is our main focus, as our time is slowly running out and getting this completed, but Hopefully like I said, it certainly is going to be our main focus, and it has been for the last couple of years. Well, like everybody else, the increasing supply chain costs with the fleet and equipment and time delays are incredible for any of that. Back to the contracted services, their snow plowing, our radio license keeps, it's another thing that we contract out, which is an increase in costs, our vehicle repairs, and our building maintenance. The one thing we really can't control much is our climate change and our weather events. Our ice storms, wind storms, forest fires, they're tough to budget for. We're now certainly to the point, it's not like, if they're going to happen, it's when. So we know we're into a rough year in 2025, but hopefully we'll see where we go in 26. But those are certainly some budget pressures that we've had in the previous, and we're certainly continue into the new year. Our new position summary was 2 training instructors, and like you've heard, the mandatory firefighter certification is our main. We only have 2 full-time firefighters training 400 fire personnel, and the numbers you see are certifications that are still out, that are required for us to meet the mandatory training. 1 EVT, the backlog of repair and maintenance requests, just to get their equipment back in service for operational readiness. The more we use them, the more they seem to get broke down or whatever, but we've had quite a backlog. And 1 fire prevention inspector, same thing, increased demand for fire and life safety inspection due to the growth in the building stock. System meeting the legislative requirement of the Fire Protection and Prevention Act, proactively reduce the number of fire strikes, proactive inspections in education, and establish our original fire inspector levels from 20 years ago. Back in 20 years ago, we had 5 on staff, and we have 3 at the moment. So that's the end of our budget presentation at this time, and certainly available for any questions.
Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Thanks very much for the department overview as well, and helping us understand some of those challenges. We brought a memo to council regarding, the changes that we need to make with that certification. Is the province at all listening to some of those pressures with that looming deadline of July 1st for next year?
Wasn't a topic I really want to discuss today, but
We can talk about it another time if you like.
I don't want to scare anybody, but so in response to the letter that the councillor just sent, we're setting up a meeting with the deputy fire marshal, but my field advisor dropped by to visit me yesterday, and of course they're well aware of the letters being sent. And so we are going to have a meeting and to sit down and just see what we need, what they can offer. And unfortunately, money wasn't one of the things, and I'll tell you later of one of my comments, but I don't think we need to deal with it right now. But ideally, they're saying they're probably not going to change it. And that's going to be a conversation I'm going to have with council. Are we going to have to change our regulating bylaw so I'm not seeing any major support at the moment, but until I have that final meeting with the deputy fire marshal.
So how many exactly are we looking at number-wise that still need to be certified?
Sean, maybe I could pass that to you just to see how many we actually have. I'm just going to go off I'm going to say we probably need 150 firefighters at this point in time that probably need to get their full certification. And that's just where we're at for firefighter 1 and 2 and the hazmat part of it.
And I mean, we're all in support of having, proper firefighter certification because we need it. But like you said, the challenges of meeting, those requirements. So those new training officers, if you're onboarding those officers to get that mandated fire certification done, will those two be onboarded in time to help us meet those timelines?
I don't know how Director Bukaboom wants me to answer this, but, some of the budgeting costs, we've had to move positions farther down to save us some money in 2026 for the overall salaries. I did ask one as soon as, ideally in Q1 to offset it, but yeah, that's going to have to be somebody else's decision, but my request was there.
These are tough questions and those are tough answers. And I think, the city of Kawartha Lakes needs to understand the challenge that we're facing. And like logistically, we're the second largest municipality. We've got a fire service of, like you said, 19 houses that are providing that service and that volunteer base and your full-time. These are real challenges when it comes to budgeting operationally moving forward. So don't disagree with the fact that these are tough answers, but folks need to realize that the circumstances that you folks are feeling as well as that pressure and challenge. So it's more of a support question to you, just so you know. Another quick question. Right size the budget. You're talking about our snow plowing being $350,000 over last year. That seems huge. Is there any way that could be negotiated to something a little bit more condensed, or?
I'm going to let Director Bukaboom maybe step in. From what I understand is we're still in a 2-year contract with it, which ends the 2026, so I'm not sure what our options are, but please step in, Director, if you...
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chief Jones and Councillor, for the question. We have been in negotiations and are adding in some internal controls into that contract, which quite frankly needed some tightening up. I believe that fire administration staff, if not already, have booked time with procurement to revisit and put internal controls into that contract. So for instance, right now, the vendor decides when to plow. Fire administration staff will put a call-out routine in place, similar to what Public Works does. That will mitigate some of the costs. I don't believe it was all due just to the high fire season. The contract itself needs some cleaning up, so we're working on that.
Thank you. And, just maybe one comment is just to also recognize that you and your team, all of them, have done a remarkable job considering the challenges when it does come to some of the climate adaptation that we're all, challenged with right now as well. So I might have another question in a few minutes, but I'll let my other councillors go.
Councillor Warren.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the presentation. Just a question popped up after Councillor Richardson asked the question. Are we allowed, and I can't remember, double hatters?
Yes, we do not.
So do we
They
have...
do, and I'll be honest, they do stay away from the Lindsay station just because there are different unions in both. But ideally, yes, we don't.
So where would they work mostly then, up north or other?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know how many, but we do have a lot of them.
That's good because
Yeah.
they're already trained.
Yeah, no,
So, I mean, that's...
we certainly support that, and
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I could give you the number, but
That's
yeah,
okay, that's a good
they're
thing.
out there, yes,
I
they
know
are.
there was talk years ago that
Yeah.
they weren't. Just on the Fire Smart initiative, I was up in Burnt River, and during that presentation, there was talk of us applying for a grant to do a plan, and I think that that's being the application. I don't know if the application has gone in, but that's pretty exciting. And then if we get the plan, then there's more grant money for actually seeing that plan come to fruition. So that was some good news. Just on the being up in Burnt River during the fire, or through, actually not the fire, but the ice storm, and seeing what was needed in that hall. Is there any talk of maybe in the near future making that fire hall a little bit more user-friendly with the, the kitchen and whatever? They could have used that during both the firestorm, or the fire and the ice storm. So that was my question. Doing a pitch for Burnt River.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I haven't been following policy. We have put in for an emergency, there is another grant out there, emergency grant, which what we were looking for mainly was, the grant was mainly for generators in the stations. Not all our departments have generators, so definitely Burnt River was part of that, to get that updated. Lucky enough, we do have mainly the main use of the Burnt River Community Center, which is much better set up or whatever, but so there was some things that in that emergency grant that we're certainly looking for water, and some of our stations that Councillor Richardson has been applying about for a while, and we're trying to get that we can offer at least good water to people instead of having to bottle and stuff. So those are some of the things that we are putting in that grant. Unfortunately, we got turned down last year, so maybe second time will be a try.
And just looking at the upgrades to some of the fire halls, I know there's an upgrade in Bobcaygeon, but that's under the paramedic, but they share, so I'm just wondering how that is going to work out.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, I'm really not sure what's going to take place there.
Okay.
Because they never inform me what they're doing, so
Okay.
I need to speak to the paramedic chief just to see what their plans are, so. We do have there was something even on our plan was to, and we put it off for a few years, was that it was built that they could actually add a second story onto it. Unfortunately, what we really need is space in the hall, and which we're running out of very quickly.
Okay. And just one final question here. Yeah, do we have pads on each fire truck for emergency services?
Through you, what was the question, sir?
The pad, like the
yes,
defibrillators.
yes, all our vehicles have all defibrillators in them.
Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councillor Joyce.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Great presentation, very succinct. Made a lot of sense in a lot of areas. I want to, two main questions. One is with the STR bylaw, I know we're uncovering a lot of situations, and it's kept your department busier with following up with inspections. Are we on top of that with the STR applications and inspections? Or?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it is time consuming for our staff, but I think he said, roughly is probably a minimum an hour maybe to review the plans and everything. Takes a little more time if we have to actually go out and inspect. So I was looking for some funds from that, but we never received them. Thank you.
I'll make a note of that. Maybe we can help you. My second one is really with the provincial mandate. We have 360 volunteer firefighters, and I remember you mentioning some time ago the full complement you would love to have is 400 volunteers. So it's a constant struggle in recruitment. But these two training instructors, if the province didn't do this new mandate, you wouldn't be requesting these two training instructors? Am I correct in saying that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I probably would be, maybe not, a little more spread out than they are. For two guys, two instructors for 400 people is quite a task. So, yeah, it's required just to give them the availability to get to the 19 stations. And your other comment about when we say 400, that used to be our because we used to have 20 stations, 20 people. So that was our 400 number. Now we're down to 19. So 380 would be my, good number. But, and like I said, it's nothing to change 20, 25 a year and then bring it back up. We just still haven't got it. We seem to be sitting at that 360 mark for the last 2 years. We just haven't got past that, but.
Okay, well, 360 to 380 is a better ratio than 360 to 400, that's for sure. My next question is a difficult one. With this extra training, what's your gut feel on retention? My concern is, are we going to lose some of our volunteers when they say, it's too much now. It's more time away from family. I feel I'm trained enough. I don't agree with this provincial new mandate.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I totally agree. I've spoke to the staff, 3 years ago when this started, that saying, if you are not willing to anticipate, we want to have a full service fire department. If you're not willing to take into the training, then you can anticipate that, you may not just want to retire, you will probably be let go. So I'm going to do at the end of this year, just to see where we are, and I'm going to start to follow up with the staff that aren't partaking at all, and just to see where their thoughts are. Are they planning on being certified? And I agree, there's myself, if I was 50 years old and been in the fire department, I don't want to go back to school. I love doing what I'm doing, but so yeah, I'm sure it's going to affect us, but I'll know better the numbers, at the end of the year.
Thank you. Just it's good to be ahead of that curve, because we don't want to be faced with a sudden wave of people quitting on us and having gaps. Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have a couple. One question, I'm not sure somebody can answer this, but where does that $275,000 go for fines? Who gets it?
The provincial government, probably.
Nice.
Am I correct, Sean?
Maybe I'll also note through the chair, some of it, depending on the nature of it, flows through our local court. So you'll see that in the fees and fines recovered on a global basis.
Okay, thanks for that. And the other one, I had the same question as Councilor Joyce there, the short-term rental calls and compliance. I know that, we have over 900, we have over 400 of them right now that are in compliance and so on. And do you keep track of the calls that you do on the short-term rentals and compliance issues? Because I know you get calls out on the weekends too, and fires and different things, and I'm just kind of wondering if you keep track of those numbers.
Yes, Mr. Chair, yes, we do keep track of them. In all honesty, it hasn't been a terrible year. I'll say during our burn ban in the summer was our worst time, because you can appreciate the people coming up here and don't really realize what the situation is. And but overall, unless Deputy or Jeff, are you aware of any issues with fire prevention?
Through you, Chair, not many complaints have been received by our team in fire prevention. Majority are through fire suppression, burning complaints, things like that, wee hours of the night during the time of the burn ban.
Okay, thank you. And then the last one, Chief, we talked about it for just a few seconds there before. I know we approved the CCANs last year, but obviously we didn't get the provincial funding to get the CCANs. Are we gonna file for that grant again? Because and also on top of that question, is the CCAN coming again this year or next year to do training in Cameron?
Mr. Chair, CCAN's is something we have to put in for as far as through the Fire Marshal's office. I don't know if we've applied. We have not applied at this time, but probably doesn't come out till the first of the year to actually, because we have 2 in the whole province, so you can understand everybody would certainly want it in their own fire departments. In regards to the other question, we did not get our funding. We've been bouncing around a few ideas in regards to what would be our best strategy at this point in time. My own thoughts, ideally, and I'm probably not going to be here, but we are looking for a new build, in 29, 30, whichever be. But my thought would be, instead of maybe wasting our money, not that it'd be a waste because we could use it, and ultimately would be to build that burn center with our own headquarters. That way the full time would be available to use it all the time, and we could have our training division there as a group instead of everything being at 710 Cameron. I just think it would be a much more economical resolution in trying to put the money into it there and not getting really what we need, where we can invest whatever money we have down the road. So technically, my own thought, it's probably going to be to these 2 gentlemen on my left of where they proceed to go, but unfortunately, we've been still looking at different options, maybe a smaller thing just to get us through, but no commitments at this time.
Okay, thanks for that. Thank you all for coming today for your presentations. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate all the work that you do for our community. Can I have a motion to receive the fire service budget presentation by Chief Jones? Councillor Joyce, seconded by Councillor Warren. All in favor? Thank you very much. We'll take 5 minutes recess here for the next group to get ready. Thank you.
And just thanks, everybody.
We'll start at 4.3, the Human Services Department budget presentation by Director Cheryl Faber.
Hello, and I'm just trying to remember what hat I'm wearing today as I'm coming to you with 3 presentations today. So first off, we will start with the Human Services Department budget. And today, with me to help me out with that presentation, I welcome Manager Michelle Corley, who's with us today, and Manager of Human Services with responsibility for the Housing and Homelessness divisions within our department. And I think you've met Allison maybe once before, but again, her showing as our new manager for human services. She's just hit her 5th month, almost done probation, and I think we're going to keep her, which is fantastic. And so I know I'm going to keep her. So Allison has taken on the Children's Services portfolio and as well the Ontario Works division. So as we jump into this then, they've been very instrumental in preparing this budget. So I have to flip this. Yeah, there we go. So there's the agenda. I don't think I need to go into this anymore with you. You've seen enough of these as to kind of how the flow will happen. I just wanted to kind of set the tone, though, for our department as we start to look at 2026. Our world and our mandated service manager accountabilities continue to ramp up, especially in these challenging socioeconomic times, compounded by the unaffordability factor for individuals' basic needs and lack of access to the appropriate level of care and services offered locally. So over the past 5 years since COVID, the increased demand and utilization of our services brings an accountability to be as responsive as we can be to the changing dynamics and establish improvements and innovation where we can to make things better with our service delivery and our staffing model. While at the same time, though demand is great and growth continues, we are challenged with resting in a place where federal and provincial government investments is status quo, leaving a pressure on municipal government to bridge these gaps, while at the same time, given the service gaps in community, we are asked to invest, operate, and fund services and supports outside of our scope of responsibility or to that which we are not funded to deliver. So it creates a bit of a push-pull in local community with the eye and expectation to municipal government to bring the solutions or the fixes to the challenges to safety and community well-being. The time is now for political advocacy for the right size and investment to where it is rightly belongs in order to stabilize the quality of life for those most in need in our community. So looking at the organizational chart for human services, it's laid out there with the corresponding divisions, as I've already kind of talked to about the manager structure. So we are stationed, as you know, in 3 locations. When you look at this org chart, we have 68 Lindsay Street, which encompasses a majority of our staff. We also have 49 Maple Avenue in Haliburton, which is there to support the County of Haliburton. And of course, we have the 166 long-term care home at Angeline Street here in Lindsay. So as well, within that, the Kawartha Lakes Housing Corporation is located in 27 different communities and buildings across both of the regions, and right now serving 821 homes, along with 30 units soon to be occupied in Fenelon Falls, and a new build of 35 units that's commenced over the summer months in Minden. And from a council and committee perspective for governance for our org structure, we are supported by 3 different governance structures. So through the legislation for the Fixing Long-Term Care Home Act, we are mandated to have a committee of management. Deputy Mayor McDonald sits as chair, as well as Councillor Perry and Councillor Yeo. And then through the Joint Advisory Committee for Housing and Social Services and the partnership with the county, we have a 6-committee council advisory committee, and it's co-chaired by Councillor Warren and Councillor Bob Carter from Haliburton. And we also have Councillor Joyce and Deputy Mayor McDonald representing the city, and Councillor Rael and Councillor Dayu from Haliburton. And last, we also then have the Kawartha Lakes Haliburton Housing Corporation Board, which is chaired by Councillor Perry, and Councillor Yeo and Councillor Carter from Haliburton sit on that. So we have a fairly complex governance structure as well to the legislative accountability for City of Kawartha Lakes. And with that, in preparation for today's budget, it has been brought forth to all those committees in advance of coming to you today. And just to note why Victoria Manor is circled in red, that is a noted change this year, of which, as you know, you'll hear from me in a little bit. We are moving that out of Human Services and moving that to its own department within the city. So, just context, as you know, we are the Consolidated Municipal Service Manager for both those regions. That started in 1999, and since that time, the City of Kawartha Lakes has governed the legislative authority for the service manager role. And underneath that are the 4 operations in which we are governed, primarily the 3, and then long-term care is governed under the Ministry of Long-Term Care. So looking at the proposed 2026 budget for Human Services, I did want to just note, as the slide does say, we did not include the Housing Corporation in these numbers and or Victoria Manor. So this is primarily, there's administration budget of about $579,000 incorporated with this. Ontario Works comes in at about $3.2 million. Children's Services at about 800. That can't be right. 823,000. That can't be right. I'll get that confirmed. Housing at 3.1 and homelessness prevention at 801. So we do have the various funding streams coming in for revenue under the Municipal Affairs and Housing, Children's and Community Social Services, and the Ministry of Education. And we also then, in our revenues, show that the County of Haliburton also has a cost proportionate share, as well as the City of Kawartha Lakes. There is also in our revenues a portion of rents that come in from the tenants at 68 Lindsay Street on the other side of our office that also come in as a rental revenue, as well as any recoveries from clients are included in our revenues. So just to look at, there's some significant increases here. However, I did want to just share with you around transfer to external clients. It's primarily the biggest component of our operations. As I looked at the budget last night, there's about $12.8 million that flows through to client supports for Ontario Works, which includes life stabilization, all the financial income assistance, the mandatory and the discretionary benefits. Then we have about $23 million actually for children's services, which is general operating to our agencies. We also have capital building expenses for agencies, workforce compensation. So it really builds up on the children's services side. We have about $5.4 million transferred for housing and homelessness, which is serving not only kind of the emergency shelter, a place called home, winter response, and then we also have 5 housing service providers. So there is quite a bit of flow through money that comes in through our department, which then goes out into the community to build service capacity. So if I slip to the next slide here, then we can look at the variance slide. And I just wanted to note on this, funding from our ministries as we prepare for the budget are usually based on assumption of what was received the previous year. Given confirmation of out-year funding is not received usually from these ministries until closer to the start of either our fiscal or their fiscal in April, or sometimes after the fact. As well, not keeping up with pace of need, demand and utilization from Municipal Affairs and Housing is lagging a little bit on our homelessness prevention program. The funding envelope for the delivery of these services has stayed static for at least 3 years. And certainly, as you know, there has been significant growth in this area. And there also has been a noted major funding model change in our children's services program. As you know from our updates, the Canada-wide early learning and childcare system has undergone huge transformation with how it's funded and how agencies are held accountable. And so even more notable, though, is the fact that that is actually coming to a sunset on March 31st of 2026, and we have not heard any word as to what's happening with that funding program. So lots to come on that, and especially if you're hearing from families on that and parents, we are keeping our ears to the ground. And as well, as I said, there's lots of change. Ontario Works is forecasting another funding model change in 2027. It was slated for 2026, but they've pushed it off one more year, so we'll wait to hear more on that. And then given the service capacity alignment within human services over the past 5 years, the staffing levels and model adjustments that were needed to keep up with the growing wait list, the demand for service and supports are showing now in operations, given our salary line. And we're also trying then to keep up with growth rate. And so as noted in Haliburton this year, you can see that they have an increase under the other municipality line because their growth has actually gone up 4% on utilization of our services in the last year. So given these gaps in service delivery changes, the 2026 budget is addressing this with 5 positions. As you've heard previously, we are looking at an outreach and housing assistant worker in the homelessness prevention area. We have forecasted for 2 client service workers within the Ontario Works division. And also, we are a machine in itself as we operate our department, and the finance and administration for this work is it's time consuming, and we need some expertise to really help us on that front. So a manager of finance and administration has been proposed, as well as the complexity of the customer service needs, the client service needs continues to grow, as you can understand. And we also are looking to bring in some expertise around a manager for service delivery within the department. So quickly, just to go over the administration component, this actually is the budget really that kind of forecasts the office building administration side, and revenues in the revenue line come in through the tenants, as I said, next door, and they are transferred through the Housing Corporation. And I guess the other piece of this on the administration side to note that we're making a difference is there is a transfer to external clients hidden in here for the Community Social Investment Fund, or the new Social Sustainability Fund that we created this year with the Kawartha Lakes Foundation, the Community Foundation, and then Haliburton also gets a proportionate share for that as well. So that's the end of the administration, and now I will hand it over to Manager Truax to take you through Ontario Works and Children's.
Through you, Chair. In general, the Ontario Works budget is primarily funded by the provincial government with contributions from both the City of Kawartha Lakes and County of Haliburton. Grant money is directly tied to the size of the caseload requiring service in these areas, with most transfers to clients being 100% funded by the Ministry of Community, Children and Social Services. Administrative funding is cost-shared 50-50 with the province. However, the ministry does provide about $500,000 in 100% administrative funding. Due to slower than anticipated growth in our caseload, we are expecting grant monies from the ministry to remain static in 2026. We do have growth, just not substantial enough to translate into dollars. Most of this money is provided to us as a flow-through, and it immediately gets sent to Ontario Works recipients throughout the year. We are leveraging all of the available grant monies to support our administrative expenses. You'll notice we're anticipating a significantly larger contribution from the County of Haliburton, as discussed by Director Faber, around the 4% increase in caseload size in that region. This increase will right-size their contribution to match the services they're utilizing. The largest areas of growth in our expenditures are salaries, wages, and benefits, as well as interfunctional adjustments. So, as discussed, we are requesting the addition of 2 additional caseworkers, as well as some management staff, and our interfunctional adjustments include our corporate services, fleet services, people services supports. For the Children's Services budget, 2025 was the first year of the ministry's new cost-based funding model. For this reason, you'll notice a significant year-over-year increase in grant expectations from 2024 to 2025. This reflects the change from the ministry's revenue replacement model with childcare operators to a fully funded cost-based model supporting their entire operations. Due to uncertainty in the 2026 granting model and the anticipation of an updated CWALC agreement, we're budgeting only known grant increases for 2026. We're optimistic, based on our sector growth, that we will see other grants increase, but we're not reflecting those in our budget just to err on the side of caution. The area where we can expect to see increases is the pocket of funding that will go directly to operators, because we know we have planned and approved growth with the Ministry of Education. With that increase also comes an increase in cost share. We share about 3% of the total that goes out to operators as a municipality. Growth in the childcare sector drives increases in our transfer to external clients by about 8%, and a portion of our resulting cost share rising to about an additional $23,000. Again, salaries, wages, and benefits, along with our interfunctional charges, represent the largest increases in our 2026 budget. We aren't adding any new staff to this particular budget. You'll notice a significant decrease in contracted services, 52%, from 2024 through 2026. This is just a result of the way in which we're funded and how we spend those monies out to the community, just not through contracted services anymore.
And now I'll hand it to Michelle. Manager Corley.
All right, so the housing services slide that you see represents housing services that support the administrative function for this division specifically, as well as subsidy transfers to our 5 nonprofit housing providers. And excluded from this slide is the contribution also flowed from this division to Kawartha Lakes Haliburton Housing Corporation, which you'll see in the next presentation. Also within this chart is the representation of the rent supplement program costs, which supports 250 households every month with rent subsidies across the whole Service Manager region. If you recall from last year, one of many details thrown at you during budget, there is a small portion of federal grant funding that does support this division. But as you'll see, it does continue to decline, with it totally sunsetting in 2030. For 2026, there is no new positions included within this division. However, the noted increase is as a result of the 3 new positions approved in 2025, which were deferred until the end of the year, resulting in 2026 bearing the first full year of those new positions. The more significant increase within the transfer to external clients line represents that new subsidies supporting the new affordable housing building in Fenelon Falls that becomes fully occupied at the very end of this year. So again, 2026 will be the first full year of occupancy for that building. And the rent subsidy is going to be supporting and allowing 22 of the 30 units there to be deeply affordable with rent levels. And that's going to help us to offer some additional units to those waiting on our 10 to 14 year long community housing waiting list. And it will also offer a few opportunities for people experiencing homelessness. On the next slide, and pulling out separately, are 2 federal provincial housing programs in which the city receives an annual allocation as part of the National Housing Strategy. These programs are targeted to end by the year 2028 to 2029, with no indication at this time of what will take their place after that. In the meantime, these funding allocations are primarily used to support capital funding for new affordable housing developments, with some funding used to support our Kawartha Haliburton Renovates program, which supports low-income homeowners with renovations, as well as capital repairs for our nonprofit housing providers' buildings. These programs are not further augmented with municipal funds. Next slide. As we're all aware, the demand for homelessness response programs is growing, resulting in a need for a variety of services and supports. Not only does the city continue to fund and create policies directing a local emergency shelter, but also our role continues to grow in other areas such as transitional and supportive housing, as well as homelessness prevention supports, drop-in services, and outreach programs and services. Our team, as you know, also takes the lead role in coordinating encampment response according to the new city protocol. Although some previously approved initiatives, such as the Integrated Care Hub, will not be fully operational until 2026, some of those program costs have been slowly phased in since 2024, but 2026 taking the heaviest burden of them. The 2026 budget also includes funding for one new position to support intensive homelessness prevention efforts. However, the majority of the cost increase is due to the rising expenses in largely existing service contracts. It's important to note that provincial funding, most of which supports those contracted services, accounts for approximately 70% of the total homelessness prevention budget. As a result, any cost increases in this area have a proportionally larger impact on the required municipal contribution should the necessary increase in provincial funding not be realized. And along those same lines, 2025 marks the third consecutive year of fixed provincial funding for our homelessness programs and services. As of now, and as Director Faber noted, the province has not provided any indication of funding levels for the 2026 year, and so staff have assumed that provincial funding will remain at the current level for next year, which will be the fourth year at that level. At the October Council meeting, Council will have the opportunity to view our new 10-year housing and homelessness strategy. The strategy leans in an upstream approach to impact the trajectory of the number of people experiencing homelessness, and we'll look forward to sharing that more soon. And I'll pass it back to Director Faber.
Okay, so throwing lots of numbers at you. So the next slide, actually, we have rolled up just to show you the comprehensive municipal contributions that go into the Human Services Department budget. And so just recently at the Joint Advisory Committee too, the committee was actually provided with a comprehensive overview of our cost modeling for our service delivery. Given Councillor Warren's question at Budget Committee on the launch around the proportionate share of funding by federal government, provincial government, and municipal government, staff provided the Advisory Committee with a very detailed overview of how that's broken down. Just for kind of high level, though, we receive about $29 million from the province, and we receive about $16 million from the federal government, with the remaining offset by the municipal contributions. So we will just take you now through some of the accomplishments, and I will just hand this back to the managers to kind of move through this accordingly.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. Our social services staff might say perhaps their biggest accomplishment of 2025 is adjusting to my arrival. However, we've also achieved many other things in the last several months. Through their dedication to process and commitment to supporting clients, staff have achieved a 92% completion rate for action plans in the Ontario Works program. Action plans are the framework that are used to support clients in their journey to self-sufficiency. This 92% rating is 15 percentage points higher than the provincial average. In April, we successfully advocated to the ministry for additional financial support to support recipients of social assistance, both Ontario Works and the Disability Support Program, to replace some of the food lost in the aftermath of the April ice storm. So that we were able to send out about $22,000 directly to clients to support them in purchasing new food. In children's services, we continue to weather the implementation of the ministry's new cost-based funding model while supporting unprecedented growth in our sector. We're on track to introduce 140 new childcare spaces in 2025 for children aged 0 to 5. At the end of the year, this will bring our childcare access rate from 22% as an average across our service area to 28.5%. We're still short of the 37% goal by the ministry, but we are working to catch that up by the end of next year. Since presenting the Children's Service Plan to you in May, we've created a roadmap of implementation, which includes 31 different activities spread over the 5-year term, many of which are well underway. Finally, we spent the summer working through the initial stages of a pilot program to support equitable access to childcare for families requiring childcare fee subsidy. This pilot is in its infancy, and we are grateful for the enthusiasm of our partners in getting this rolling.
I'm not going to touch on all of them, but just to highlight a couple of accomplishments for housing and homelessness. As mentioned already previously, in October, Council will see that new 10-year housing and homelessness strategy, and certainly that has been a huge project underway for more than a year now. Additionally, work that will come forward to Council a little bit more so in 2026, but we're doing heavy lifting right now, is the work with our community housing providers. So it's those 5 nonprofit housing providers. Their mortgages are ending after a 35-year term, and through our legislation, our relationship then changes with them. It changes also how we fund them. So we're doing a really deep dive right now into doing building condition assessments for all those buildings to determine what sort of long-term financial need they're going to need on more the capital reserve fund plan. So we're doing that. And then also earlier in 2025, also as you are certainly aware, staff presented the new encampment and outreach response protocol, and the protocol has proven to be successful in coordinating the efforts of multiple city departments, which has resulted in seeing 36 encampments being cleared by services being provided since April of this year. We're currently monitoring 7 active encampment sites with 10 occupants, which is significantly down from last year, where at this time we were dealing with at least 40 sites and closer to 60 individuals in those encampments. Strong communication and multi-department efforts surrounding this work couldn't be successful without also increasing our capacity through implementation of digital, real-time databases, dashboards, and other reporting mechanisms. We also know that this past winter was particularly challenging, resulting in nearly 3 times the demand over the prior winter for additional emergency shelter solutions. We have that Out of the Cold program that gets triggered when temperatures reach -10 or some other weather event, and we had 3 times more of that weather or temperature threshold reached this past winter than the one before.
So as we look forward into 2026, just quickly on the administration side, I just wanted to let you know that we have done quite a bit of modernization and digitization work around financial analytics and also operational reviews within human services. So we are looking at implementation of all of those recommendations moving into 2026. It will be a busy year, but when isn't it? And we are also right-sizing the cost for 68 Lindsay Street. So when that building was originally built, there was a model and an agreement for operations, of which has changed now given some course of time. So we will be looking at how we right-size the facility costs for that in 2026. So I think that's it. Oh, the other big piece of administration is actually we are going to venture into the cost-sharing agreement with the County of Haliburton, just given some of this work we've been doing around operational reviews and where efficiencies can be made, as well as long-term financial planning. It's our due diligence to actually review that contract in 2026. So Allison, I'll hand it to you to the Ontario Works.
Thank you. Yeah, nothing stays the same for long when you're a CMSM, and so we are preparing for 2027 and the rollout of the Ontario Works new administrative funding model that has been delayed from 26. We are working with the province and our program advisor on the introduction of an outcomes-focused approach with the province around Ontario Works and achieving our performance outcome targets with them. And finally, as we continue to see growth and growth outpacing outpacing the City of Kawartha Lakes in Haliburton, we are shifting our focus to reducing recidivism in 2026 and working to help those who have found self-sufficiency to be able to sustain that. In children's, we're planning another year of change and adjustment. We talked about the new CWELC agreement, hopefully being signed and launched next year, but again, right now, no news. We continue to expand the childcare sector with an additional 127 spaces in the works and hopefully a few more. And finally, working with those operators who have worked under the new model now for a year to take those best practices and lessons learned and implement them into next year. And as part of our role as a CMSM to fine-tune our processes to make that easier on them as well.
So for 2026 for housing services, we're going to be moving forward with a few of the things I already mentioned as accomplishments for 2025, but kind of taking a couple things to the next steps, such as now that service agreement work with those housing providers that have reached that end of mortgage point. We're also looking to increase the team capacity with those new positions approved in 2025 to work on developing a bit of a pipeline for affordable housing development so we can be planning ahead and have the dedicated resources to do that effectively in the division. And then obviously there's going to be a lot of work involved with implementing our new 10-year housing and homelessness strategy. It feels like a big year just trying to get that strategy put together, but then we also laugh on the other hand, knowing that the work's just beginning. But it's important work, and it's work we're really looking forward to digging into. We also know that that new strategy is really going to require us to ensure that all of our local resources, programs, anything that we have any remote control over are fully aligned to really prove and serve our system well. So we're going to be digging into more and just making other policy changes and program changes to make sure that we are anything that we touch and have control over, it's working to the benefit of our greater goal established in a new strategy around reducing homelessness. So we look forward to digging into those opportunities, as well as finally getting that integrated care hub opened in 2026, which will provide an additional 12 emergency shelter beds, as well as additional drop-in space for those experiencing homelessness.
Last is just the compilation of some of the budget pressures, but I don't think I need to actually repeat these. I think we've said them throughout. The one that I probably would just kind of focus in on, because of all of this change, we also need to make sure that our staff are trained up and we actually have the right capacity and the resources to support the complexity of need that we are seeing. So that remains high on our priority list as well from a staff development point of view. So that there ends our presentation. So I'll open it back to you for questions.
Open for questions. Any questions? Councilor Warren.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Just out of interest, the Community Foundation, did they raise that money, or how did that work with the foundation?
Yeah,
I wasn't too sure.
Good question, and through you to Councillor Warren. So the department has had historically a program called Community Social Investment Fund, and it was a certain component of tax levy dollars that went to support agencies with one-off requests around where they could invest socially to make an impact. It was part of a bit of an idea that we came up is how can we grow that money to make a further impact within communities. So when the foundation came on board, it was an opportunity to work with them to talk about how could we do an investment strategy to grow those funds over time to then be able to afford more investment within community around social sustainability. So we committed to a 3-year seeding of the current amount that we had historically had to them, of which they are growing over time, and it will grow, and then they will actually own that and take that on for the Kawartha Lakes community.
And so is that where the 20,000 came in? I thought there was a grant, to help people through the ice storm.
So through you, so let me just clarify the confusion. So the Social Sustainability Fund that the foundation, we're working with them in partnership on, it's about a $148,000 investment. But the question you've just asked is what Manager Truax talked about was the monies that we did receive from the Ministry of Children and Community Social Services. It was not linked, two separate components, yep.
Councillor Joyce.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Don't have a lot of questions because being on this committee, I've seen the financials before and asked all those questions in committee meetings. But with the new financial manager position that you're seeking, can that not go back, be centralized with City Hall? We have a finance department.
Very good, obvious question. So through you to Councillor Joyce, and certainly that's exactly how we see it working out, is that it would sit within the Human Services Department, be a part of our management team, but from a matrixed approach, be very much bound by the corporate services team to ensure policies, compliance, alignment with operations. So it will be like a matrixed opportunity for us to work together on that position. I'm not sure, Director Bukaboom, if you want to add anything to that. I think that answers the question.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, excellent question. Cheryl and I have spent, Director Faber and I have spent a lot of time discussing this. There's a large volume of nuances to the financials in human services. You've heard of all the changing grant programs and subsidies and all the legislated requirements. It's not an acumen that a traditional accountant would normally hold. So I see this as a partnership where we have some of that expertise acumen in the division, and then one point of contact for corporate services. And as well, there's just ever-changing things in their world, different reporting requirements. It's a much heavier financial role, I won't say than traditional accounting, but there's a lot of nuances to their type of work.
Thank you, Director Bukaboom, and I think nuance is an excellent word here. My first committee meeting with this group, my head was spinning to try to understand all the nuances. I get it now, but and that's a perfect lead into not a question, but just a comment. My frustration is that, and I do believe in a very strong social safety net, it's the province's responsibility to pay, it's the municipality's responsibility to fulfill the obligations of that social safety net. The province makes minimum standards that we have to meet. In fact, I think we should surpass them. But it's costing us $8.6 million that the province, and that third bullet point here under budget pressures is a perfect example, or increase in homelessness while the province funding remains static for 3 years. That's what we have to live with, but it's the reality of the situation that all municipalities have to live with, and it's a bit frustrating. Thank you.
Good point.
Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Yeah, more of a comment for me too. I mean, looking at, this budget in front of us and, how many programs are funded heavily and, they're resilient on that grant funding, and you just don't have those end game numbers. And, there's so many layers of funding to make this happen in our community, and it's all important work and what you're doing. And it's staggering, like you said, to look at the early learning and childcare overview and then look at that homelessness overview and just how much impact that has on our community, but we don't know how we're going to fund and provide that service. Like what you folks do on a daily basis is incredible. And I mean, it's probably most challenging, but most necessary. So like, sitting around this table, we certainly appreciate what you deal with on a daily basis, and we recognize the challenges as well when it comes to budgeting.
I would be remiss, actually, through you, just to the sediments. we are very privileged that we've been able to have a municipal top-up to do this work that is demanded in community. I couldn't imagine working for certain municipalities that struggle to make that happen because it really does impact service delivery. So I guess I just want to say thanks to the Municipal Council for your leadership on this.
Thank you for that. Could I have a motion to receive the Human Resources Department budget presentation? Councillor Richardson, second Councillor Warren. All in favor? Thank you. Moving on to 4.4, the Kawartha Lakes Halliburton Housing Corporation budget presentation by Director Faber. Just let me know anytime you want to break, because I know you have a long afternoon, so if you need a break, let me know.
Hi there. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Cheryl Faber, and I am the Interim Chief Executive Officer of the Kawartha Lakes Housing Corporation. And today with me, I brought my colleagues, Manager Shelley Smith, responsible for tenant services in our 821 units. And as you can imagine, that is a job in itself. We had some good discussions this morning. And with her, we also have Kendra Fleetwood, Supervisor for the administrative functions within all of the tenant payments and managing the flow of all the rents and things like that. So I would thank them both for being here, and I would be remiss, Don Quibel, who is our manager for building and properties, is on holidays. I don't know how he got approval for that request today. And then Jason Gillison is our supervisor for capital and special projects. So thanks to that leadership team for their support to me over this past year. Their knowledge and expertise, I couldn't do it without them. So I just want to thank them up front for that. So let's launch into the Housing Corporation budget. And I'm not going to go through, I don't think I'm going to say much on this slide. I will just actually take you and start you with this slide. I thought it was a very good visual depicting a housing corporation, yet the complexities of the relationship that goes into the structure of this. And given the recent operational review that we've done with Housing Services Corporation, which you heard a couple meetings ago, I think I presented this slide to you, but within the middle box, a local housing corporation was formed when the province, when they devolved all those housing units to the municipalities. There's a theme here. And they then were incorporated under the Ontario Business Corporations Act. And that housing stock was transferred to the service managers with no capital reserves. And Michelle and I talked about that today, and that was in 2021. So again, those 35-year mortgages that we were talking about under housing services, that all lined up with that timeline. So local housing corporations are mandated to provide as many 100% rent geared to income units as possible. They're not to have mortgages, but federal, provincial, and must I say municipal debentures. No funding formula is in place for housing corporations. They're often based on subsidy, of which we are bringing forth to you today as the tax levy request. Yet the structure is complicated though too, because the sole shareholder is the City of Kawartha Lakes, and so we are that sole shareholder, and so we have to make sure that there's certain compliance pieces with the Corporations Act. We need to look at the financial statements. We have to have an annual shareholder meeting, and all the other pieces that are listed under there with the bylaws and a shareholder direction in place. And then as the municipal service manager, they're responsible for the funding and administration of the housing system, including all of those kind of regional and system-wide policies, procedures, and strategies that guide how housing services are delivered within the corporation. So that gives you a bit of a visual of how it is a very complex relationship, but yet there is certain responsibilities for each of those stakeholders. So within the organizational chart, you've seen this just recently, and so I just wanted to say within our department, they are part of our leadership team. They're integrated right within how we operate policies, procedures. It's a very nice mix within the department. And all the staff of the Housing Corporation are City of Kawartha Lakes employees. And so the Housing Corporation itself, by way of the introductions, we have kind of the two sides to things. We have a tenant services side and we have a building and property side. We have 11 staff under the tenant services and we have 16 staff and summer students under the building and property side. The tenant services includes one supervisor, which is Supervisor Fleetwood for the office administration and tenant placement and payments. And then we have 4 community housing workers who support tenants across the 821 units. And we also are bringing in a safety officer, a safety and security officer, late Q4, which was approved in 2025 for all of our communities. And then the building and properties team maintains all the buildings and properties on a daily basis. They control the workflows and ensure that the buildings remain in good condition for the long term, including the capital and asset management and planning for those buildings. So I just wanted to say for 2026, we are proposing 1 new building tech under the building and properties team, given our growth in units. So we need to have a few more bodies to help take on the 30 units in Fenelon Falls and the 35 in Minden. So just as I had said in the Human Services Department presentation, the Housing Corporation is governed by a board of directors. And so at the board on September 16th, this was the following motion that was approved and put forward. So they received the budget for information and they also recommended that the draft budget move forward to City Council. So looking at the budget summary for the Housing Corporation, on the revenue side, there is only one grant that the Housing Corporation receives, and that's from the federal government, and this pays a very old debenture. And there are other revenues that come in based on interest income, on interest earned from home sales, yet that interest income is decreasing as interest rates, as you know, are also decreasing. And then our user fees include the rental revenues from 821 units across the 27 buildings. And as I said, we are bringing on the 30 units, hopefully by November the 1st in Fenelon Falls. And then there will be the 35 new units in Minden come late Q4 of 2026. So rental units, again, are structured where tenants pay the rent and it is geared to their income. So as I said, it's an RGI model, and there are additional RGI units where there is a direct rent subsidy paid to KLH, and then as a housing service provider, the Housing Corporation is accountable to the service manager, where the municipal subsidy helps to maintain the operations and the Housing Corporation responsibilities. So I think that's about it on this slide. The bottom line, though, as I show to you, is a $4.4 million request for 2026, which is an increase from 2025 of a 27% increase in it. And you'll see in the variance slide where that hits. So again, the Housing Corporation also supports the County of Haliburton, and so this is just a breakdown of the municipal contribution based on our cost-sharing agreement with the County of Haliburton, and it basically breaks out into a 29-71% cost-share agreement currently. And as I said, in 2026, we will be looking at this, but as we move into 2026 without a new agreement, we've based it on the current, and that just shows you the proportionate share for each municipality for the Housing Corporation. So as I move to the next slide to look at the budget variance, I guess this table provides a closer look at the year-over-year variances and where they were favorable or unfavorable in their budget impact. So other revenue, as I have said, is investment interest is significantly reducing given the change in the interest rates. Our user fees are projecting a bit higher because we actually have had almost a full year of Hamilton Street coming on board. You'll remember that came on board in 2024. And then we also have Murray Street and Gull River. So that user fee rental or revenue has increased as well. Materials and services, there's been a slight increase, yet also some reductions in here as we've been kind of looking at things such as staff mileage and fuel consumption for company vehicles. And we built the budget assumptions for utilities, repairs, and maintenance based on what council set for the budget assumptions for 2026. And then the debt, lease, and financial, the debt payments, of course, have increased because the debt payments will start to show for Murray Street and Minden in 2026. Interfunctional adjustments, there is a transfer to reserves there, as well as a fleet operating charge. We are going to pilot Trine fleet operating within KLH and see if that's something that could actually project further savings for us in future budget years, as well as there has been an increase in property taxes given the addition of 2 new buildings as well in 2025 and 26. And so given the growth, the 2026 budget is addressing, as I said, the addition of 1 building tech position. So 2025, despite there not being enough work, it's been a very busy year in the Housing Corporation. So as I said, we've done a lot of work around some financial diagnostic review, and there's been some really good recommendations from that for how we can bring into operational efficiencies. We did do the operational review and recommendations with Housing Services Corporation. 30 new units built, the 35 in Minden commenced in the summer. We also did a comprehensive state of good repair renovations completed on the majority of our buildings, given the Canadian, the CMHC funding that we received, which has put us in really good stead for future forward on our capital assets. We sold actually 3 properties. It says 2 there, but we're just in the midst of closing one this week. So that will be 3 properties sold. We also were applauded based on a second security and safety review that was completed for the corporation around how safe and all of the mechanisms we have in place for security. We've also started to enhance our tenant engagement opportunities, staff engagement and empowerment to be responsive, just based on the complexity of tenants' needs. So staff have been great at jumping in. You know, some of these situations are new to them, and because we've not dealt with this before, given the complexity of need. And we couldn't do it without the partnerships in community, including KLPS, the OPP, Haliburton Highlands OPP, and our community paramedics. It certainly takes a community to support the tenants living in our communities. And so in 2026, the work, the writing's on the wall. We actually do want to get things back organized and in order, especially from a governance structure perspective. So based on the review and recommendations from the operational review, we are going to be obviously bringing on a new manager for Housing Corporation's operations. It's my goal that we can move forward with that as soon as possible. I'm just in the stages of getting that one ready to go. We will have the shareholder meet with the board to really confirm that mandate for the Housing Corporation, and listed under there are all the pieces of work that we will start to look at, including the development of a shareholder agreement with the city and the board. And we will look at those articles of incorporations and the bylaws of the board. And as well with that, we really want to look at developing a new 5-year strategy. So over the course of the last 5 years or so, KLH Housing Corporation has been our development arm within the city, yet they are also very much the largest community housing provider within Kawartha Lakes and Haliburton, and have to focus on that as their main responsibility. So as you heard Manager Corley say, that housing development and the pipeline development for affordable housing will move back to where it rightly sits with the service manager to look at the system. So KLH can really focus on being successful, a successful corporation. And then looking forward to 2026, I've talked about a few of these. We still have three remaining properties for sale. And then we also will be looking at the The service delivery model changes at 68 Lindsay, because currently, right now, KLH Housing Corporation is wrapped into being the landlord for the housing building with that end of the north end of the building. But certainly it's a transitional housing model, of which it was right from the get-go. So we really want to change that service delivery model to align with that. And then the service manager clarity for accountabilities and funding to support the housing corporation. So really looking at some of the supports needed to ensure the right tenants are placed there, just making sure that the roles and responsibility between housing services and the housing corporation are clear, and then establishing policies to support tenant successes. And the very last one is establish the operational supports for the business management within the city. So that service agreement will really start to lay that out and what the interfunctional supports are to support the housing corporation, including things like asset management, data, financial processes, risk management, IT, the clerk, all of those to create efficiencies for how they operate. So budget pressures as we look into 2026, certainly as noted, the increasing subsidy required from the service manager, both from the city and the county to operate, given the complexity of needs, and then the continued increase in move-out and unit renovation costs. That is a significant cost of doing business anymore with the housing corporation. Units are just left sometimes in disarray, and the cost that goes into getting those units back online to be occupied is significant. And then also balancing that legislated housing corporation accountabilities of tenants with that of Collective being part of the housing services system. To provide stabilized core housing options for the growing numbers of individuals in crisis. So without the stock available for community housing, transitional housing, supportive housing, KLH plays a very large system role, of which hence why probably the funding is increased now, because they're playing that role for so many other residents that need housing. Until we right size and start declining on the reducing homelessness with our new strategy, will KLH probably start to see a reprieve of that. So with that, I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, we'll have some questions here. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you. Great presentation, another level of complex for sure. When you're looking forward to 2026, you have the potential of that 4 remaining properties. Do you see that do you see that moving forward in 2026 for sure as revenue? Or is there retrofits or additional things that you need to do moving forward?
Very good question, and through you to Councillor Richardson. So these are some of our what do you call them? Houses. Semi-detached houses, thank you, that we still have as inventory and stock, yet there are complexities to the, and the fact that people are living there. And so we have to respect the fact of the human side of the, that they are being housed now, and what would that look like. So it's kind of a process in which you manage gently as we move forward with what that could look like. So it's nothing from a renovation or a capital piece. It's just the complexity. Was there anything, Manager Smith, that you wanted to add?
No, I think you covered it. There's a complexity of needs there, so we have to take that into consideration. Certainly we can offer to trans individuals into similar sized units, but there's often reasons why that's not always possible. So, yes.
Thank you. And that gives us a better understanding too for you moving forward as well. So I appreciate that. And when you're talking about changing the service delivery model for 68 Lindsay Street North to that transitional housing, does that come with changes as well for you, like timelines and costs and whatnot, if you're changing the model?
Through you to Councillor Richardson, I may actually get Manager Corley to speak to a bit of that. We're on the cusp of reviewing the current agreement of which was established, I think, in 2019 or 2018. Michelle, can you, or Manager Corley, can you just high level speak to probably the original agreement for that unit, and then if there is cost implication.
Yeah, certainly through the chair to the councillor. So 68 Lindsay Street, when occupied in 2019, was the city's first dedicated supportive housing program of 24 units. Since that time, we've learned an awful lot, and a lot of those units have been, once they turn over and become vacant, they move into what we're calling a transition in place model. So they're becoming largely more of a transitional housing program unit. Again, like Director Faber mentioned, that sort of housing work is not a core housing work of KLH Housing Corporation. And we actually, as on the service manager side, we have a service contract with John Howard Society who's providing the supports. However, it's a very convoluted, very complex arrangement with the city being the building owner, KLH having signed a head lease some years ago to be the landlord for the building, but then we have another service agency delivering the actual support. So it's very convoluted. We've learned a lot, especially on the operating side of it, so we're looking to change that. I don't anticipate there being any change in cost. We're really just looking at shifting around who is doing what and really redefining roles and responsibilities to increase clarity there.
Thank you, and I think, you know, that's an important approach to it, like you said, because we are shifting, because the model has changed dramatically since we opened it up in 2019, so I appreciate that. Also, just to, you know, give you a shout out, because your achievements in 2025 are, you know, outstanding, and you should all be recognized for that.
Councillor Joyce.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I have just one question. I know we had a meeting with, I think it was the Solicitor General on the Landlord and Tenant Act some time ago in the removal of, you know, a problem resident that we had no choice. Where are we with that? Is it been expedited in some way? I kind of lost the thread on that.
Yes, and through you. So yeah, that was October 28th last year. So if we're coming up to it a year ago. So that was prior to the election as well. So in follow-up to that meeting, through the Joint Advisory Committee, we had rewritten the memo that went to them to kind of really focus in on the true crux of what might be some recommendations for the change to the Landlord-Tenant Board. It sometimes can be very much a hurry up and wait process, given the timelines that are set for some of those case reviews. So we did, as staff, on behalf of the Joint Advisory Committee, respond back with written suggestions to that. And I might test you, Manager Smith, to know, are you trying to remember exactly was there anything of significance that you wanted to highlight on that today?
I think that we chose to highlight on trying to encourage the Social Justice Tribunal to train their adjudicators on dealing with housing providers, because I think that they're not able to separate out that we're a housing provider and somebody else is just a private residential landlord. So by doing that, they would be trained and well-versed on our processes and on the Housing Services Act, which would help us to hopefully expedite hearings through that process. And they would also be aware that by the time we take it to the Landlord-Tenant Board, we have tried almost everything that there is possible to resolve that tenancy, because it's not our role to create homelessness, but to preserve it. So we're trying to get that recognition, and that's, I think the biggest thing that we put through, as well as encourage them to create opportunities for individuals to appear at the tribunal by various methods, like maybe kiosks, so making access a little bit better. So that's kind of the direction that we took.
Thank you for that. And I'm well aware you try everything you can to resolve the situation. We don't want to. Yeah, I understand that and I appreciate it. And where the budget pressure is generally they stop paying rent at the same time. So there's that too. So in effect, you're still pushing that, but we don't have any real solid, concrete solutions from the Ontario government as yet. So they're aware of it, but we're still
No.
waiting. Okay.
Yeah, and through you. So nothing's been received back, given that. And the one thing, though, we have done locally is starting to look at bad debt. And so staff have been very efficient this year to look at the bad debt and looking at how we can do the collections of the bad debt as well. So what can we do locally? That's certainly work that the team has delved into this year as well. So.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? I have just one there. As we build these new places, like we build in Fenelon, Murray Street, and Hamilton Street, I think it's our goal always to make it break even as far as we build these. Is that a kind of true statement? So the income coming in from all these new builds basically is a break even, or no?
No, and no, the answer is no. So through you.
Say that again?
Did you want me to spell that out for you? N-O. So no, through you, and back to that slide that talks about the role of the local housing corporation. They are not mandated. They are not governed to be cost like zero neutral or any type of revenue. They will operate at a deficit, and that is they are the last solution for the most vulnerable, and so there is that municipal top-up and that piece that is around local housing corporations.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, no other questions, so could I have a motion to receive the Kawartha Lakes Halliburton Housing Corporation budget presentation by Director Faber? Councillor Warren, second by Councillor Joyce. All in favor? Thank you. Let's just take a short break so Director Faber can take a break for a few minutes before her next presentation. All right, thanks. Call the meeting back to order, and we'll go to 4.5, Victoria Manor Budget Presentation by Director Faber.
I don't need to introduce myself, I don't think. So good afternoon, everyone. And with me today, I just wanted to welcome Denise Bulmer, Executive Director for Victoria Manor Long-Term Care Home. And Denise is an employee of Sienna Senior Living. Welcome, Denise. Thank you for joining. And I think online, I would also like to note that Philippa Welsh is online. Hello, Philippa. You look beautiful up there. You and Denise coordinated your colors. So, Philippa is the VP for Regional Operations for Long-Term Care with Sienna Senior Living. And I think we also had Carolyn Danes as well. She plays a role on the financial side as well with Victoria Manor. So, just wanted to thank them for their leadership and their continued partnership with the city, as well as the Victoria Manor leadership team who continues to compassionately care for all of the residents at Victoria Manor. So next slide. Oh, that's me. Thanks, Constance. I just wanted to provide a few facts about Victoria Manor. It is a 166 long-term care bed facility. It did open in 1989, and at that time was classified as a Class B facility by the ministry. It hits its 36th anniversary this year, having served the needs of our seniors population well for many years, offering compassionate and quality care to those who have called it their home over this time. Within the home, the resident home areas offer options for living accommodations, including private rooms, semi-private and basic rooms with 24-hour nursing and personal care, along with physician oversight and access, as well as other health professionals. And for a resident at the home, they pay a portion of their room and board, while the province pays a portion of the accommodation costs, of which these rates are set by the province annually. And as of July 2025, occupancy within the home was at a 98.5%. Of course, this fluctuates based on the health of the population living at the home, yet staff remain diligent to maintain the 97% occupancy target or above to optimize our funding for the home. So this is the org chart, which is an overview within the structure of the home, all of which employees are City of Kawartha Lakes employees, and then moving into 2026, that director and administrator will also be a city employee. The staffing totals expressed in a full-time equivalency, total of about 165 full-time equivalent positions. And that includes both full and part-time staff. And then contracted staff include services such as physiotherapy, chaplaincy, hair care, foot care, social work, dietitian. And then as mandated under the Act, the city is responsible to appoint that administrator, as well as a medical director and a director of care for nursing for the home. And this is done through bylaw appointment with the city. And then that medical director is the physician responsible for medical practices and resident care at the home. So just a few more facts and an overview on Victoria Manor. The Fixing Long-Term Care Act of 2021 basically lays out those requirements for municipalities and outlines the standards for long-term care homes. The province funds, and they also set the regulations through the Act. And the Ontario Health oversees the admissions and the services into the home. And as a single-tier municipality, we are mandated by provincial legislation to establish and maintain a long-term care home. And the province and the municipalities provide direct funding, as well as the province provides oversight and management of long-term care, covering that cost of food, programs, and then also through that residence portion for their accommodation. The city is the licensee and the operator of the home, the owner of the home, sorry, I should say, instead of operator. And we are accountable based on our long-term care services accountability agreement with Ontario Health. And then the Committee of Management, of which I noted earlier that Deputy McDonald is the chair of. That committee provides the governance oversight and ensures compliance for the Act and its regulations. And Sienna Senior Living is contracted by the city for their service provision and clinical expertise in the home, ensuring that that high quality of care is delivered to the residents by the employees of the city of Kawartha Lakes. And I just wanted to note that given council's support this year, we are moving into the new service contract with Sienna starting December the 1st, and we just thank them too for the past 12 years of service management for our home. So looking at the budget for 2026, in preparation for the budget, Sienna prepares the draft budget based on the assumptions provided to them from the city. They run it by staff, and then it's brought forth to Committee of Management, of which we brought that forward at the end of August to the committee. And as well, knowing and building from the funding the home received from the Ministry of Long-Term Care in 2025, the funding assumptions were generated in developing this budget, so that the current case mix index is at a 1.0162, which is based on the current case mix index. And this CMI, or case mix index, is a resident acuity classification which correlates to the amount of funding we receive. And so the higher it goes, the more funding you get. If it drops, it also impacts your funding. So we like to keep it. So again, that's our current. We like to keep it up so it aligns with the funding we need to receive. And given the 3 funding envelopes for long-term care, the assumption this year was to the assumption was a 2% increase over 2025 for nursing and personal care, program and support services, and raw food. Those are the 3 funding envelopes that they receive. And then the other accommodation funding is a portion of funding that covers the operating and the administration costs for the home, which includes things like insurance, taxes, utilities, repairs, contracted services. So the grants for Victoria Manor include the Ministry of Long-Term Care funding, as well as the supplementary staffing funding for the direct I'm getting tired, tongue-tied after 3, sorry. The grants are from the Ministry of Long-Term Care, which is about 15.3 million, as well as the supplementary staffing funding for the direct care hours for residents, as well as fundings received for infection prevention and control. And other revenues are brought in through interest income, as well as from resident services, including hairdressing, transportation, internet, other sundry services that they choose, or treatments not covered by OHIP. And then the user fees are also part of the co-payment that the residents pay for their accommodation, as well as recovery of any bad debts of resident fees. So that's basically quickly the overview, and now I will take you through just some of the variances over the 100,000. So other revenue increase was based on that 2% increase from the ministry funding received as of April 2025. Combined with that supplemental staffing funding that was received throughout the year, which established a new base funding going into 2026. And as well, the interest income has been projected as per forecast from Sienna. And then the materials, training, and services, that's the nursing operations expenditures. As you can imagine, food costs, our laundry contract, the dietary chemical, there's been an increase. Our utilities, of course, are increasing as per our assumptions, and as well as repairs and maintenance to extend the life of the home. And then contracted services, there has been slight increase in the staffing agency costs. We are projecting some legal costs in 2026, as well as some other the contracted services that are in place were just aligned with the annual increase as well. So given the growing complexity of clinical needs, along with the service contract for the home, the 2026 budget is addressing this with the new cities administrator and director role, as well as the people partner role that we'll be bringing on in people services to support the staff at the home, as well as a part-time life enrichment assistant. So looking at 2025, accomplishments and priorities, and certainly if there are questions on this, I know Philippa or VP Welsh could actually answer this, but I wanted to say that the staff right now and the leadership teams are very active right now in preparing for accreditation. And so we are looking at having our accreditation in December, 3 days in December, of which is a very comprehensive accreditation for the home. So fingers crossed that will be our accomplishment come December. And then we're also implementing as a priority enhanced socialization initiatives to provide more activities that residents can enjoy. And as you'll see in the accomplishments, the Net Promoter Score for family and resident satisfaction surveys has increased to 66 from a Net Promoter Score to date in 2025 for residents and 52 for family. And just let me explain, and certainly we can add more context to this, but the Net Promoter Score is a metric used to measure overall satisfaction and loyalty of residents and their families by asking them how likely they are to recommend the facility to others on a scale of 1 to 10. So what we've been talking about as staff is anything above 60, you are knocking it out of the park. And anything above 20 is pretty darn good, and anything above 30 is even better. So you can see the scores of 66 and 52. I think those are very high metrics from a family and a resident input. So we should be proud of these ratings given by our residents and families. It says a lot about the quality of care folks receive at the home. And you'll also note there was a new art program launched with Kawartha Art Gallery, showcased on Trent Radio and Global News segment. As well, we continue to look at our community or quality improvement plan and look at some of the indicators to look at reducing avoidable emergency department visits from 27.93 to 27.37%, and also a reduction in falls rate from 17 to 16.66%. As well as looking at the 2024 employee engagement survey, we're looking to further involve employees in creating a safe and effective work environment. So the team's been very diligent to have an implementation plan on employee engagement, and the survey increased from a 6.9 to a 7.3, and I'm assuming that's a Net Promoter Score. As well, with an increased participation of 5%, and then increased employee engagement has also gone up with an overall score of 7.4. So great accomplishments across many functions within the home. And I just wanted to raise the direct care hours, and as outlined on this slide, the province set this initiative, which was a 4-year initiative, back in 2020-21, and it was to finish by March 31st of 2025, and this is where all residents would receive a 4 hours per day of care by nursing and personal support workers, as well as a 36-minute window of care per day from allied health professions, such as the physiotherapist, occupational therapists, social workers, and dietary. So you can see the actual numbers. So as of Q1 of 2025, we're actually sitting at about 3.55 hours of direct care for our residents at Victoria Manor, and well over the 0.36 hours of allied health. And then as we budgeted, we were striving to maintain that 3.5 target in 2026, as well as a slight increase to the allied health. So it'll be interesting to see where 2026 goes on the direct hours of care and where the province actually takes this initiative, because as of March 31st, 2025, and just given recent reports from August, the province did not meet their metrics of the 4 hours per day. So it'll be interesting to see now what comes out of this that will come forward in our 2026 correspondence from the ministry. So looking forward into 2026, These are the priorities that the team is working on, as well as many other things there, but decreasing avoidable transfers to the hospital. So again, looking at right care, right place, right time, right value. We're looking to improve the resident experience related to falls, pain, skin wounds, issues, all part of the quality improvement plan, of which we have to submit to the province, as well as continue to improve resident dining experience. As you can imagine, people that live in Victoria Manor as their home, I couldn't imagine, but I know I'd want some really good food. So I can imagine that is a very key initiative for the staff there. To successfully onboard the new director as part of the long-term care services within the city will be a priority in 2026. As well as implementing and sustaining the transition activities related to that service contract transition with Sienna. And then we will start to focus recruitment program to reduce reliance on staffing agencies. So that's where we're kind of looking forward in 2026. And I guess the corresponding budget pressures that go with that is certainly we will monitor that service contract for the operations to ensure efficiencies are managed, as I think my report said to you earlier this year when we looked at that, and that the cost allocation is aligned and sized accordingly moving forward. We will also look to monitor the reduction in staffing agency costing at the same time. Where can improvements be made in staff scheduling and or the correlation with staff recruitment? And then we see just the inflation cost and how it impacts the operations within a long-term care home. And then as well, as I talked earlier, is trying to maintain that case mix index so it doesn't impact our funding and is really aligned to the complexity of the overall population's need within the home. So I think with that, I'm about ready to lose my voice, so this is good, and I take no questions. I'm kidding.
Is there any questions? Well, look at that, everybody. No. Councillor Warren.
For you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that and the whole last while. a lot of information. There was a talk years ago that all B facilities would have to become A facilities. So I guess with the change of government, that just went off the books. Is that something that you see in the future? Or the capital upgrades, would that maybe bring it to an A?
Yes, and through you, I actually just had a meeting about that this morning. So if I can answer this, and certainly CAO Taylor, if there's anything you want to add historically, because before my time, this was an exploration by the city, given at the time the province was starting to look at redevelopment and moving exactly the C and D facilities to at least an A and B facility. But the we did receive confirmation from the Ministry of Long-Term Care that as a municipality, we did not have to upgrade to an A facility and go through a redevelopment process at that time. And if I can, I think that might have been in about 2021, 22 that confirmation was received at some point there. So certainly given the master capital plan that we did in 2023 to look at the extension of the current facility over 10 years, we are actually just looking at the long-term forecasting for a redevelopment given the end of that life cycle of that building, and how do we start to build that into the city forecasting and long-term planning from a capital perspective for sure. So if that answers your question.
No, with all the renovations and whatever, you could actually, without doing a rebuild, whether or not you could bring it from a B to an A. No, okay.
No.
Councillor Joyce.
Thank you, through you, Chair, and you can just say no to anything I ask. It's perfectly fine. But Mike, more comments than questions. I do have one question. The materials, training, and services, and this is across almost all departments, the increases are hard to fathom because, you'd think there'd be a more competitive world out there for snow removal and whatnot. But they keep climbing up in 10 and 15%. This one is one area, though, where we actually have to buy food. So it actually makes sense that, we have quite an increase there because we all know how food is climbing up astronomically. Question I have is in the direct care hours, the province set a target. The allied health, we've surpassed the 36 minutes a day quite a bit. Can that be counted towards direct care? Because if we add the two numbers together, we get 4.84, which would be above the 4.36, and we're looking good there.
If I may, Philippa, can I get you to answer that question to Councillor Joyce?
Certainly. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor. The direct care hours is specifically for hours related to nurses, so nurse practitioners, registered practical nurses, and PSWs. It can't be used for any other position. I think when the ministry set out this target and the minister's aspirational target of 4 hours of direct care, that's what they were talking about. Adjacent to that, they've set a target for allied health of 36 minutes. And that's for all of the other providers, your directors of care, associate directors of care, physiotherapists, social workers. And I think it was not anticipated how much resource there is in a long-term care community for this kind of service. So we see across the province in every sector that this is very highly used. Alongside of that, the ministry also adapted their definition of what could be captured in allied health. And so it's been a moving target upwards in that direction. But in terms of the minister's aspirational target and benchmark, the 4 hours of care, it's all about the direct care provided by nurses only.
Okay, thank you for that. I do know the definition of direct care and allied health. I was just wondering if it counted towards it. And you're saying it doesn't. Thank you. The only other one is it was a pleasant surprise to see you using the Net Promoter Score. I've been using that for 15 years. Yeah, and I'm blown away by the numbers. I've been doing it for my own business for 15 years, and I'm jealous. I wish I got those numbers. A score of 66 is over the top, and congratulations.
If I can, through you, to ask Philippa, can you just explain that a little bit more too, like to bring the context to what happened in the home?
Certainly, the context of the Net Promoter Score and the surveys?
Yes.
Yeah, so we've been conducting resident satisfaction and family satisfaction surveys for some time, and moved to the Net Promoter Score methodology to be more consistent with the concepts of service excellence across many sectors. And what this allows us to do is to define and stratify, if you will, our satisfaction levels into people that promote the services at Victoria Manor, people who are generally passive about or neutral about the services at Victoria Manor, and those that are detractors. So we do an annual resident satisfaction and an annual family satisfaction survey. And then this year in 2025, we started pulse surveying family members and residents as they move into the community so that we're getting more timely responses and results that we can respond to. So we're very pleased with the rates, as Councillor Joyce mentioned. They are knocking it out of the park. And we have consistently high engagement from our stakeholders in that regard. Pardon me. And so benchmark that across Sienna. But we're finding it a much more versatile tool than the traditional, very lengthy service survey questionnaire.
Thank you. Any other questions? I just got a couple of comments. Your comment on the province didn't meet their metrics. That's interesting. I'm glad they're sharing that information, and I hope they do something about it. And secondly, I want to echo your compliments to all your hard work and your group that you're doing, and thanks for everybody that comes out here today and did your presentation, and thank you very much, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you for your undivided attention.
I'd like to have a motion to receive the Victoria Manor budget presentation by Director Faber. Councillor Warren, second by Councillor Joyce. All in favor? Thank you very much. No new business, and a motion to adjourn. Councillor Richardson, Councillor Warren, all in favor? Thank you very much for coming today.